My stunning boss lady. Chapter 1. On their way back to the company. I felt a burning heat all over my body and occasionally glanced at the rearview mirror. In it, a young woman with long, flowing hair, a sexy figure, and a body-hugging skirt was straddling a man's lap, facing away from me. Her expression was seductive, her arms wrapped around the man's neck. Slowly and rhythmically, she ground her hips, while soft, heated breaths escaped her lips, making me feel more restless by the second. This continued until we were nearly at the company entrance. Suddenly, the man tightened his grip around her. She collapsed forward, her entire upper body covering his face as she gasped for air. After some time, she straightened up, adjusted her skirt, and, blushing deeply, got off the man's lap. Her face was youthful and beautiful. When she got out of the car, I couldn't stop thinking about the sight of Ju Ye's alluring curves wrapped in that body-hugging skirt. It left me unsettled for a long time. I was just in my early 20s, full of youthful energy, and seeing such an intimate scene so early in the morning, what could I do? I was barely able to handle it. But I couldn't do anything about it. The reason was simple: I was a driver, and the people in the back seat were my boss, Chen Haifeng, and his secretary, Ju Ye. The boss's woman, of course. I couldn't have any improper thoughts. As I was still disturbed by the earlier scene in the back of the car, I suddenly bumped into a soft body. I could feel my chest crashing into two surprisingly soft mounds. When I looked up, it was none other than Ju Ye. She still had that lingering blush on her face from earlier in the car. She held her chest, looking at me with a mix of embarrassment and anger. "Lin Dong, did you intentionally bump into my chest?" "I didn't. You're imagining things," I said quickly, startled, glancing around nervously. Ju Ye was Chen Haifeng's woman. If he heard what I just said, he might kick me out. Ju Ye gave me a sidelong glance. "So, did you or didn't you bump into my chest?" I instinctively looked at her chest. She was still rubbing it, and since she was wearing a body-hugging skirt and a loose strapless top, it looked like she was about to spill out of it. The sight made me feel breathless. Seeing this, I had trouble catching my breath and quickly tried to explain, "I didn't do it on purpose, I didn't expect you to be around the corner." Whether she believed my explanation or not, she got closer to me and suddenly asked, "Did it look good in the car?" "I didn't look." I quickly stepped back, feeling a chill run down my spine. Ju Ye couldn't contain her laughter when she saw how nervous I was. She glanced at me and asked, "Then why are you reacting?" I was speechless and awkwardly stammered. Just then, Ju Ye started walking toward Chen Haifeng's office, saying, "I'm going to tell Chen Haifeng that you were being a pervert and bumped into my chest on purpose. Your tent is the evidence. Please, don't." I panicked, rushing to catch up. "I didn't do it on purpose. Please calm down." Ju Ye stopped, turned, and looked at me with a mischievous smile. "So, if I calm down, you'll agree to anything. What do you want to do?" Seeing her smile, I instantly became cautious. Ju Ye's smile widened. "If you let me flick your forehead, I'll let you off the hook." I glared at her, feeling like I was being toyed with, but I couldn't do anything about it, so I reluctantly agreed. "Just once, okay?" "Fine, just once," Ju Ye said with a smug smile. At that moment, when she flicked my forehead, I froze. I couldn't describe the feeling. It was complex, somewhere between confusion and a strange tension. Then Ju Ye laughed and said, "I was just joking. Your boss wants to see you. He needs you in his office." I looked at her, embarrassed and annoyed, realizing that the collision earlier was all part of her little trap to mess with me. But what could I do? She was Chen Haifeng's woman. I couldn't afford to offend her, so I kept my distance. After taking a few deep breaths to calm myself, I walked over to Chen Haifeng's office and knocked on the door. A moment later, his voice called out, "Come in." I pushed the door open. Chen Haifeng was sitting behind his desk, and when he saw me, he handed me a cigarette. "You came at the right time. I was planning to talk to you about something." "Whatever you need, Chen boss, just tell me," I immediately responded. As for the cigarette he handed me, I didn't smoke it. Instead, I tucked it behind my ear. After all, I was just a driver. While my boss might not mind, I had to be clear about my own place. The situation with Ju Ye in the hallway earlier made me nervous, and I was afraid Chen Haifeng might notice something was off. This matter is a bit special, Chen Haifeng said, not rushing to explain. He lit the cigarette, took a deep drag, and slowly exhaled. Then he fixed his gaze on me and said seriously, I want you to seduce my wife. Chen boss, you're not joking, right? I almost jumped out of my seat. Joking? Who would ask someone to seduce their wife? But to my surprise, Chen Haifeng didn't laugh. He just kept staring at me and repeated, I'm not joking. I'm serious. No, no way. Even though he insisted, I couldn't believe it. I shook my head furiously. I can't do it. No way. Can't do it, or don't want to. Chen Haifeng's frown deepened, and his gaze turned colder. I felt the chill in his eyes and immediately shrank back. I couldn't even look him in the eye. I felt like crying inside, not understanding how anyone could want someone else to seduce their wife. Chen Haifeng seemed to grow impatient. He lit another cigarette, then looked at me and said, to be honest, Zhu Yeye is pregnant. You know this, right? Chapter 2, Xiao Lin is not that kind of person. Understood. Hearing Mr. Chen say this, I felt a little more at ease and could vaguely guess the reason behind it. Zhu Yeye is Mr. Chen's secretary, a young and beautiful college graduate. She joined the company last summer and not long after, Mr. Chen took her in. Often, when the boss's wife asked about Mr. Chen and me being together, I would act as a cover. As long as the boss's wife saw Mr. Chen and me together, she wouldn't question it any further. In fact, every time Mr. Chen was in a hotel room with his secretary, Zhu Yeye, I would be waiting in the car, providing cover so Mr. Chen could keep his home life stable while enjoying his affairs on the side. Things were fine for a while. Zhu Yeye was quite understanding, not competitive or demanding. But ever since she got pregnant 2 months ago, she seemed to have become a completely different person. At work, she started acting like the boss's wife. Privately, she used her pregnancy to pressure Mr. Chen, demanding that he divorce the boss's wife. This put Mr. Chen in a difficult position. Speaking of this, I have to mention Mr. Chen's rise to success. Mr. Chen now owns a construction and decoration company with 4 engineering teams, earning 2 to 3 million a year. However, in the early days, he wasn't as prosperous. He relied on the boss's wife's father's connections to land many municipal renovation projects, which helped him rise to his current position. Thus, divorcing as the one at fault would come with consequences for him. You understand, that's good. Mr. Chen, smoking a cigarette, continued, I know Yeye's personality. She's the type who speaks her mind and acts on it. If I can't divorce my wife soon, she'll take her pregnant belly and confront my wife. So, during this time, I want you to seduce my wife, get her into bed, and then I'll be able to propose the divorce. Mr. Chen, I really can't do this. Though I understood Mr. Chen's intentions, I still refused. The idea of my boss asking me to seduce his wife sounded ridiculous to me. Mr. Chen wasn't in a hurry. He looked at me with some disappointment in his eyes. Aren't you always telling me that you wouldn't be where you are without me? Why is it so hard for you to do something for me? Is gratitude only something you say with your mouth? But Mr. Chen's words made me feel guilty. He had been good to me. While others only earned 3,000 a month, Mr. Chen paid me 5,000. Last year, during the holiday season, he even lent me his Mercedes-Benz E300 to drive back home. I was the envy of many back in my hometown. There's no but. Seeing that I was wavering, Mr. Chen gently persuaded me, don't you think my wife is beautiful? At his words, the image of the boss's wife, her graceful and enchanting demeanor, immediately flashed in my mind. Her name was Lin Mieshua. Even though she was in her 30s, time had left no marks on her. She was especially elegant, with a beautiful oval face and a pair of mesmerizing, watery peach blossom eyes. Standing at 168 centimeters, her figure was curvaceous, perfectly complementing her dignified and refined aura. She could easily be called the ideal woman. When I first saw her 3 years ago, I was astonished. I never thought such a beautiful woman existed in the world, and I would never dare to harbor any improper thoughts about her. Never in my wildest dreams did I imagine that 3 years later, Mr. Chen would ask me to seduce his wife. I didn't know why, but when I thought about it, my heart began to race uncontrollably, almost as if it would burst from my chest. I didn't even dare to look Mr. Chen in the eye anymore, my thoughts confused and filled with guilt. I whispered, but Mr. Chen, I'm just a driver. The boss's wife would never look at me. I don't think I can help you. You're lacking an understanding of women. Mr. Chen noticed the shift in my expression and smiled with satisfaction, his voice full of experience. Women are emotional creatures. They don't care about money, they care about emotions, about the warmth and care from a man. Do you think I was rich back then? I wasn't any better than you. I used to follow others as a laborer, earning only 50 yuan a day. But in the end, Lin Mieshue still married me. Believe me, if you care for my wife, shower her with attention and warmth. I guarantee, it won't be long before you get her into bed. With that, Mr. Chen stood up, picked up the keys to his Mercedes, and without giving me a chance to refuse, said, "It's settled then. From today, you'll stay at my place. I'll create opportunities for you." I didn't say anything, but somewhere deep inside, a fire seemed to be ignited. The image of the boss's wife's graceful figure wouldn't leave my mind. Mr. Chen's house was located in the center of the city, at the Kanglan Villa. 3 floors. Before we got out of the car, Mr. Chen gave me a few more instructions. When we entered, the boss's wife immediately caught my attention. She was sitting on the couch, her long legs crossed as she read a book, her form-fitting dress accentuating her curves. Despite sitting, her flat stomach and snow-white skin were clearly visible. The delicate calves exposed beneath her dress were long and straight. "Wife, the company's been busy recently, so Xiao Lin will be staying here for a while," Mr. Chen said as he casually set his bag on the table. "Let him stay. There are plenty of rooms in the house, and Xiao Lin is no outsider," the boss's wife said without hesitation. I had been working as Mr. Chen's driver for 3 years and had often driven the boss's wife. She was familiar with me, so she didn't think much of it. But I was different. Before, when Mr. Chen had asked me to seduce his wife, I was able to hold my head high and not entertain any improper thoughts. But now, as I heard the boss's wife give her consent, my mind couldn't help but drift to the words Mr. Chen had said to me earlier. When I looked at the boss's wife, I couldn't stop my eyes from lingering on her curvaceous figure, and my heart began to race again. My mind was full of conflicting thoughts. Even my breathing became heavier. "Xiao Lin, why is your face so red? Are you feeling unwell?" As I was lost in my thoughts, I heard the boss's gentle voice. When I looked up, she was standing in front of me, having somehow moved there without me noticing. Her graceful figure stood before me, her hand reaching up to my forehead. "Oh, you're not that hot." Strange. My face flushed even more. Because she was standing so close, I could almost feel her presence and smell her unique fragrance. The boss's wife didn't notice my discomfort. When she found that I didn't have a fever, she lowered her hand and smiled gently at me. "I'll go get a thermometer to check your temperature." No need, boss's wife, I'll just go to the bathroom." I quickly found an excuse and fled to the bathroom. Leaning against the door, I gasped for air, my mind filled with the image of the boss's wife standing so close to mine. To be specific, my thoughts were consumed by the boss's wife's graceful figure. The reason I ran to the bathroom was simple. On one hand, I felt guilty. On the other, I was afraid of what might have happened if she had seen what was happening with my body. Outside, the boss's wife, Lin Mieshue, saw me rush to the bathroom and looked puzzled. She glanced at Mr. Chen and asked, "What's wrong with Xiao Lin? He seems a bit off today." Mr. Chen smiled knowingly and walked up to her, wrapping his arm around her waist. "Maybe you're just too beautiful for him to resist, so he went to the bathroom to hide." "Don't talk nonsense. Xiao Lin is not that kind of person." The boss's wife was very poised. She shot Mr. Chen a playful glare and, worried that I might walk out and see them, tried to push him away. "Let go of me, you'll embarrass Xiao Lin when he sees us like this." "So what if he sees? It's natural for married couples to be affectionate. Why should we hide it?" Mr. Chen held her tighter, his hand slipping lower down her back. He chuckled, "What's wrong? Do you think it's inappropriate for him to see? We're married after all. That's not the point. I'm shy. I'm going to make dinner now." With that, the boss's wife, blushing, gently pushed him away and headed toward the kitchen. Mr. Chen, sitting back down on the couch, lit a cigarette, his gaze following her graceful figure as she walked away. His eyes were filled with contradictions. On one hand, he really wanted to get a divorce and be free. On the other hand, Having his driver seduce his wife made him feel uneasy. At that moment, I came out of the bathroom, looked around, and saw the boss's wife in the kitchen. Mr. Chen was sitting on the couch, his expression dark, as if lost in thought. Mr. Chen called me over. He scanned me from head to toe and then smiled, asking, "You didn't do anything in the bathroom, did you?" "What do you mean?" I feigned ignorance. Mr. Chen looked at my hands and smirked. "Did you work on those muscle arms you've been bragging about?" "No. No." I immediately shook my head vigorously, refusing to admit anything. Mr. Chen chuckled, not pressing further. "Okay then. After dinner, you stay up late. Pay attention to the noise in my room." "What noise?" I was a bit confused. Mr. Chen smiled again, his gaze lingering on my hands with a meaningful expression. "You'll find out soon enough. Just hope you can control yourself when the time comes." Chapter 3, Eavesdropping at Night. "Xiaolin, you can stay in this room." After dinner, Mr. Chen arranged a room for me on the second floor, next to the master bedroom on the east side. Yes, right next to Mr. Chen and the boss's wife's room. Originally, this room was decorated for a future child to live in, with everything in place to care for a baby if needed. However, after 10 years of marriage, the boss's wife still hadn't gotten pregnant, so the room remained vacant. I didn't have any particular thoughts about it. Whatever the boss decided, I was fine with. But when the boss's wife, Lin Mieshue, so that Mr. Chen had arranged for me to stay next door, her expression shifted slightly. But the boss's wife was a very dignified and cultured woman. She didn't directly voice her disagreement in front of me. Instead, she looked at Mr. Chen with a gentle tone and said, "There are plenty of other rooms. Why this one? This room is meant for our child." The boss's wife was elegant and poised, looking at Mr. Chen with disapproval. The room he assigned me was too close to theirs, just next door. First, this room had been carefully decorated for the child they hoped to have one day. Second, she felt that it was too close to their master bedroom, which didn't offer much privacy. But Mr. Chen acted as if he didn't hear her subtle refusal and made the decision nonchalantly. "We've been married for so long and still haven't had a child. Who knows when that will happen? Besides, Xiaolin isn't a stranger. I'm busy with work and always need the car. With him so close, I can call on him anytime." After saying that, Mr. Chen didn't give the boss's wife a chance to protest further. He pushed me into the room, laughing heartily as he said, "Xiaolin, come on, have a look at this room. It's yours from now on. The wardrobe has a new silk quilt and mattress, so you can make the bed yourself. When you sleep, just turn on the air conditioner." The boss's wife, seeing that the decision had been made, reluctantly agreed. Her eyes showed helplessness. Her husband was generally good, but when it came to certain matters, he was a bit too blunt, even arranging for the driver to stay next to their master bedroom without considering how inconvenient it might be for her. But the boss's wife wasn't just beautiful and elegant, she was also very cultured. Seeing that her husband had made up his mind, she walked into the room, smiling gently as she pulled the sheets and silk quilt out of the wardrobe. "You're a man, so you probably don't know how to make the bed. Let me help you," she said, smiling warmly at me. I couldn't help but be stunned by her beauty. Especially when she smiled at me, her gorgeous face seemed to light up the room, like a beam of light shining directly into my heart. I marveled at her beauty, momentarily distracted, and quickly snapped myself back to reality, almost apologetically saying, No, I can do it myself. I used to be in the army. Making the bed and folding sheets are basic skills." But as I said this, I deliberately avoided looking at her, feeling too guilty and my heart racing too fast. Mainly because of what Mr. Chen had told me earlier at the office. He wanted me to seduce his wife. How could someone like me, a poor, humble rural man, even think about such things? I caught a glimpse of the beautiful boss's wife in my peripheral vision, feeling a mix of excitement and sadness. I felt unworthy of her. But it seemed like she remembered my military background, as she tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear and chuckled, saying, "Oh, I forgot you were in the army, Xiaolin. But since you're in my home now, you're a guest. Don't stand on ceremony. Just treat this place like your own home, okay?" The boss's wife didn't stop what she was doing just because I had been in the military. She continued to smile warmly, bending down and carefully smoothing out the sheets. The golden sunset light streamed in through the window, casting a gentle, holy glow on her, making her even more stunning. I was once again mesmerized. I had never been this close to the boss's wife before. As a driver, I could never afford to stare at my boss's wife for long. That would be sacrilegious. Just then, I felt a strong hand grip my shoulder, startling me. I turned around to find Mr. Chen had somehow wrapped his arm around me and was squeezing my shoulder. He smiled silently, looking at the boss's wife bending over, her curves accentuated by the sunset light. "Get some sleep early tonight. Don't stay up too late, okay?" he said, his gaze filled with hidden meaning. "Got it, Mr. Chen." I replied automatically, but my mind was preoccupied with what he had told me earlier, to stay alert to the noises in his room tonight. What noises, exactly? I couldn't figure it out, but a strange curiosity was building inside me. I was desperate to know what would happen in Mr. Chen's room tonight. The curiosity gnawed at me, making it nearly impossible to fall asleep. By 10 p.m., I was still awake. Despite the summer heat, the air conditioner was on, and Mr. Chen's house used high-end Japanese Daikin air conditioners, which worked extremely well. But I had realized the reason I couldn't sleep. It was because of what Mr. Chen had said to me before dinner. His words had sparked an intense curiosity in me, even though I had no idea what exactly I was supposed to be listening for in his room. Around 10:30 p.m., I started hearing noises from the next room. Due to the wall, it wasn't entirely clear, but it sounded like someone was talking, maybe even something else. I could faintly hear Mr. Chen speaking with the boss's wife. Mr. Chen was asking for something, and the boss's wife was gently refusing. As is well known, people are naturally curious. I, too, was no exception. Especially since I was still a young man in my early 20s, full of youthful energy, and with Mr. Chen's earlier words echoing in my mind, "I want you to seduce my wife," that sentence was like poison, lingering in my thoughts, torturing me. The temptation became overwhelming. A voice inside me, like a devil, kept urging me to leave the room and go eavesdrop at the door of Mr. Chen and the boss's wife's bedroom. That way, I would be able to hear more clearly. Another voice, like a wise sage, chastised me. "Lin Dong, what are you doing? Eavesdropping is wrong. It's not just unethical, it's also creepy. Have you thought about what would happen if you were caught? The boss's wife would be furious, and Mr. Chen would fire you." But the devil's voice persisted. "It doesn't matter, what's the problem? You came to Mr. Chen's house, this is exactly what he wanted. Besides, he told you to listen for the noises in his room. There's nothing wrong with that. You're just following his orders. You're a driver getting paid by your boss, so it's only natural you listen to what he says." The two voices battled in my mind. Slowly, the devil's voice began to win. This is human nature, I thought. When someone wants to justify their actions, they can find 1,000 reasons to do so. After a mental struggle, I finally decided to sneak out and listen at Mr. Chen's bedroom door to figure out what was happening inside. There was a price to pay for eavesdropping. As I was about to step out, my heart was racing, my chest tight with anxiety. I was terrified of making any noise that might alert the boss's wife. In my haste, I left my slippers behind in the room and tiptoed out barefoot. I was careful not to make any sound with my footsteps. At that moment, I felt like a thief, sneaking around in guilt. Mr. Chen and the boss's wife's room was only about 2 meters away. In the quiet night, everything seemed still. Normally, I could cover this distance in one step, but it took me a whole minute to reach their door. With each step, I felt more and more nervous. My adrenaline was pumping, and I was drenched in sweat. If someone had tapped me on the shoulder at that moment, I probably would have jumped out of my skin. Finally, I reached the door to the boss's wife's room, and after nervously licking my dry lips, I carefully pressed my ear to the door. And yes, being this close had its advantages. I could faintly hear Mr. Chen and the boss's wife talking inside. "Don't tilde." Just then, the boss's wife's voice, soft and melodic like a yellow oriole, drifted out from the room. Her tone was shy and somewhat suppressed. When I heard her voice, my whole body felt like it had been jolted awake. Chapter 4, God's Creation. The boss's wife's soft and embarrassed voice continued from inside. "Honey, please, don't, okay? Little Lin is just next door. It's south too close. If we do anything, he might hear the noise, and that would be so embarrassing. Do you want your wife to lose her dignity? Soon, Mr. Chen's low, firm voice responded. No, we agreed before dinner, remember? You promised to give it to me tonight. Then, Mr. Chen's voice softened as he tried to persuade her, and it's already so late. Little Lin must be asleep by now. It's fine. Besides, if you control yourself and don't make any noise, it will be fine. There was a brief silence. It seemed like the boss's wife, hearing that I had gone to sleep, was a little swayed, but still hesitated. But honey, I'm still afraid I won't be able to control myself. She pouted, then scolded him playfully, this is your fault. Why did you have to arrange for little Lin to stay right next to our room? It's so inconvenient. He's a man too. You didn't even think about how I might feel. It's really embarrassing for me, okay? And since you've already promised him, what else can I say? You've always treated little Lin like a brother, right? If he's like a brother, what's the problem with him staying next door? Even if he hears something, what's the big deal? Mr. Chen laughed casually. He then smirked, adding, besides, little Lin is still a virgin. If he hears anything, it might actually be a good learning experience for him. How do you know he's a virgin? Little Lin seems pretty honest and handsome. How could he have never had a girlfriend? The boss's wife asked, a little curious. From her point of view, I was in my early 20s, looked healthy and handsome, and should be popular with girls. He went to the army, didn't he? How could he have time for a girlfriend there? Mr. Chen explained, then laughed as he recounted a funny story about me. I know he's a virgin because when I arranged a lady for him once while entertaining clients, he blushed so hard when she touched his hand, it looked like he was going to pass out. He stammered and ran off. It was hilarious. I was standing outside the door when he said this. My face turned bright red, feeling incredibly embarrassed. What Mr. Chen said was true, but I had been shy and awkward at the time. Plus, I thought my first time should be with someone I cared about, not with a stranger whose name I didn't even know. Still, it felt a bit harsh to have Mr. Chen share this story in front of his wife. I didn't want to ruin the good impression the boss's wife had of me. She had always seen me as a well-mannered, decent guy. But clearly, the boss's wife wasn't focusing on me. Soon, her voice came through again. You arranged a lady for little Lin? What about you? Did you arrange one for yourself? Of course not. My wife is so beautiful. How could those dirty ladies compare to her? Have you ever seen someone settle for less when they can have the best? Mr. Chen quickly responded, his quick wit shining through. The boss's wife seemed pleased by his answer, her tone becoming much softer and more affectionate. She replied in a voice as sweet as a bird's song, that's better. After that, the sounds from the room died down, and only faint rustling noises could be heard. They were unclear but provocative, like the scratching of a cat's claws in my mind, driving me crazy. Unable to resist, I pressed my ear even closer to the door. Now I could hear a little more clearly. Mr. Chen's voice faded into the background as I focused entirely on the boss's wife. She was breathing heavily, seemingly trying to hold back her emotions. At that moment, if I still didn't realize what was happening in that room, I would be a fool. After all, I hadn't been naive before, and I could put two and two together. Everything Mr. Chen had said about his preferences for less compatible women had been a lie. He often arranged multiple escorts when entertaining clients, unlike what he claimed about only wanting the best. But at that moment, the thought that occupied my mind wasn't Mr. Chen's deceit, it was the image of the boss's wife from earlier, when she'd been so graceful, arranging my bed with a perfect, angelic smile, and the way her beauty shone like sunlight. It suddenly struck me how undeserving she was of a man like Mr. Chen. She was so perfect, why had she settled for such a scoundrel? Lost in thought, my arm inadvertently pressed down on the doorknob. To my horror, the door wasn't locked. It swung open suddenly. In that instant, not only did the sounds from the room become crystal clear, but the scene inside was also revealed to me. Although the lights weren't all on, the dim light from the bedside lamp allowed me to see Mr. Chen lying on the bed. He must have noticed the door opening because he turned his head, saw me, and smiled at me knowingly. But I had no time to react or smile. I was terrified. In a flash, I grabbed the doorknob, my heart racing as I desperately shut the door behind me without making a sound. My heart was pounding so fast, I felt like I was suffocating. By the time the door clicked shut, I felt like I had just escaped from drowning. My clothes were soaked with sweat. Without stopping to catch my breath, I hurriedly tiptoed back to my room, locked the door behind me, and collapsed, breathing heavily. The image of the door opening and the scene inside still lingered in my mind. The first thing I saw when the door opened wasn't Mr. Chen. It was the boss's wife. In that moment, my mind exploded. I had seen her the image of flawless, soft, jade-like skin, a perfect figure, and a beauty that could only be described as a divine creation. Chapter 5. You are such a person. Although the room was dark, I could only see the boss lady's back, which was like mutton fat jade, but despite this, I could know what she was doing at the first time. She was sitting on Mr. Chen. What is a woman doing sitting on a man? Need I say? That's why it was so deadly. Although I couldn't see anything except the boss lady's back, I could still imagine all the details. I almost instinctively imagined what the boss lady was doing with Mr. Chen. I imagined what a beautiful picture the boss lady was from the front. Thinking about it, I found that I was a little angry. What Mr. Chen said to me in the company in the afternoon began to repeat in my ears: I want you to seduce my wife. Why do people sometimes suffer? It's because I hope to get it. But I didn't get it. That's why I suffer. Oh, so annoying. I thought about the scene I saw in the boss's wife's room just now, and I became more and more depressed. Why was it Mr. Chen lying on the bed instead of me? How great would it be if it was me? Why could Mr. Chen, such a scumbag, meet such a good woman as the boss's wife, but I couldn't? If I could have sex with the boss's wife once, it would be worth it even if I died. So, I couldn't sleep. Took out my phone and started looking for websites. Yes. Unhealthy websites. Actually, this can't be blamed on me. If you want to blame someone, blame the boss's secretary Zhu Yeye, this goblin. Zhu Yeye and the boss's wife have completely opposite personalities. The boss's wife is a very elegant and dignified woman. Even if you look at the boss's wife for a second, you will feel blasphemous. But Zhu Yeye is different. Zhu Yeye is a complete fairy. From the day she became Mr. Chen's secretary, she often asked Mr. Chen about his well-being. She liked to wear a black suit and high heels, which was very sexy. At first, I didn't think much about it. I just thought this woman was very beautiful and very tempting, but since she asked Mr. Chen to take her home several times, my impression of her changed. Because once, I saw from the rearview mirror that she actually helped Mr. Chen with her mouth. At that time, I was shocked. After all, I was still driving in front. How could she not avoid me at all? But it is undeniable. Although I pretended that I didn't see anything at the time and still drove well, that incident brought me a great shock. It was also from that time that I knew that a woman could be so attractive to men. And it was also at that time that I accidentally opened a new world with Woo Girl in my rental house by watching a short video on the website, and it was out of control from then on. I also hated myself. I wanted to quit countless times. But Zhu Yeye, this demon, wouldn't let me. I don't know if she did it on purpose. She always treated me like a transparent person and did some intimate things with Mr. Chen in the back seat, and Mr. Chen didn't mind. Every time, Mr. Chen would smile and say that it was a benefit for me. Until recently, Zhu Yeye was going to marry Mr. Chen, and Mr. Chen stopped showing me these benefits. I also deleted all their websites on my phone with perseverance. But deleting websites also has a price. The price is that I searched for Mayday and Strawberry Community in the mobile browser for a long time, but I couldn't open the web page. Then I thought about the boss lady and was anxious. It took a long time before I found a favorite website. Then I looked in the direction of the boss lady's room, which was only separated by a wall. After hesitating for a while, I decided to go to the bathroom outside, because the sound insulation of this room was not good, and I didn't have headphones. I was afraid that the sound from the phone would be heard. After all, the voices of Teacher Kang and others were also very iconic, and it was easy to die socially. Just when I reached the public bathroom on the second floor. The next room. Since Mr. Chen lived in a villa with good privacy, the curtains were not drawn. Under the moonlight, the boss lady gradually became more and more excited. Her face was red as if blood was about to drip. Suddenly, she hugged Mr. Chen's neck and said with seductive eyes, "Husband, I want." "What do you want?" Mr. Chen thought of the scene he saw me at the door just now, and he also became morbidly interested and deliberately asked the boss lady. "Don't say it." The boss lady is a classical and dignified woman. How can she say it? She bit her lips shyly and didn't say anything. Mr. Chen just liked the boss lady's shy look. He was not satisfied until the boss lady shyly said that he wanted him to be faster. But at this time, Mr. Chen was willing but unable, and surrendered. Are you done? The boss lady looked at Mr. Chen with some uncertainty. There was a hint of unsatisfied and disappointment in her charming eyes. In the past 6 months, Mr. Chen rarely went home. The number of times she and Mr. Chen had shared a room could be counted on one hand. As a result, it just ended. There are too many things in the company recently, and I'm a little tired. When Mr. Chen saw the disappointment in the boss's eyes, his man's self-esteem made him subconsciously explain that he was indeed a little physically and mentally exhausted since Ju Yeye became pregnant. Well, then you should rest early, I'll wash up. The boss's wife got off the bed. Although she was a little disappointed, she didn't say much because she had a high EQ. This kind of thing is a man's fig leaf, and it should not be uncovered if it can be kept. However, some emotions, understanding is understanding, does not mean that you are not disappointed. After taking a shower, the boss's wife came out and saw Mr. Chen, who was already asleep. She sighed faintly, then hesitated for a moment, changed into the nightgown she had specially chosen today, and then walked out of the room gently. Under the moonlight, her legs were straight and slender, and her figure was slender and perfect. Public bathroom on the 2nd floor. I was watching a movie. I turned the volume down at first, but gradually, I felt that the volume of the phone was too low, and I couldn't hear it clearly. Besides, it was late now. The boss lady and Mr. Chen also had their own bathroom in their rooms, so it was unlikely that they would come to the bathroom outside. So I boldly turned up the volume of the movie a little bit. While thinking about the scene I saw in the boss lady's room just now, I watched the movie, and at this critical moment, the bathroom door, which usually no one would come in, was opened. The boss lady appeared at the door. I was startled by the sudden sound of the door opening, and when I saw that it was the boss lady who opened the door, I was even more shocked and couldn't even finish my words. Old boss lady. Xiao Lin, you. When Lin Mieshua opened the door and looked at my hand, she was also stunned. The unbearable sound was still playing on the phone. Soon, she reacted. Her face flushed. Shame and anger. You are such a person. The boss lady said angrily, and then turned around and left without looking back. Chapter 6: A Guilty Nightmare. It's over. It's over. I was terrified when the boss lady got angry. After a brief panic, I instinctively chased after her, and then in a hurry, I grabbed her wrist. As soon as I touched her, I felt her skin was surprisingly smooth. But I didn't have the heart to think about these things at all. My mind was full of the eagerness to explain to the boss lady. But the boss lady's reaction was obviously beyond my expectations. I saw that her wrist seemed to be burned when I grabbed her, and she immediately shook my hand off. Then her eyes were alert and angry, looking at me, and asked, Lin Dawn, what do you want to do? I have never seen the boss lady angry. In the past, the boss lady gave me the impression of being very dignified, gentle as water, gentle temperament, like a holy goddess who cannot be desecrated. Tonight was the first time I saw her angry. My heart sank to the bottom of the valley. It's not just because the boss lady was angry. Also, because the boss lady just shook off my hand as if she was burned, it burned my self-esteem a little. But the explanation still needs to be explained. I barely gathered up my lost mood, looked at the boss lady pleadingly, and said, Boss lady, please listen to my explanation. What to explain? The boss lady interrupted me directly and scolded in a low voice, I saw all the hooligan things you did in the bathroom just now. Do you want to tell me that I saw it wrong? Speaking of this, the boss lady looked at me with disappointment again. Xiao Lin, I originally thought you were a big boy with good character. You drove my husband, and I was also relieved. I didn't expect you to. At the end, the boss lady was a little embarrassed to speak. She glanced at my lower body and said in shame, You actually did it secretly in my house, doing such a hooligan thing. I looked at the boss lady who scolded me helplessly, full of shame and regret in my heart, but I couldn't find a reason to explain to the boss lady for a while. I couldn't describe my mood. Nothing to say. Humph. The boss lady snorted when she saw me not speaking, then turned back to her room, not wanting to say anything more to me. Don't go. I saw the boss lady was leaving, and hurriedly took another step forward. Although I felt uncomfortable and regretful, and didn't know how to explain to the boss lady, I didn't want her to leave subconsciously. Because if the boss lady left, it would mean that I would completely leave a wretched and vulgar impression in her mind. This is what I don't want at all. But the boss lady was obviously very wary of me. As soon as I took a step, she immediately glanced at the bedroom door not far away, and then warned me, "You'd better not follow me, otherwise I will call my husband, and he hasn't slept yet." But although I was afraid, I still wanted to explain, because what happened just now was too embarrassing. Who would have thought that when I was using the fifth girl, the boss lady would suddenly open the door and come in? And there is a separate bathroom in the boss lady's room. I never thought that she would come to the bathroom outside in the middle of the night. But it was useless to say these things now. The matter was settled. Seeing that I still wanted to entangle, the boss's wife turned to the direction of the bedroom and pretended to call Mr. Chen out loudly. The shape of her mouth was also the shape of calling husband. "No, no, no, I won't follow you. I'm going back to my room now." I was so scared that my heart almost jumped out of my throat. I raised my hand to indicate that I would not follow you anymore. Then, I was afraid that the boss's wife would be worried, so I hurried back to my room with mixed feelings. Back to the room. I couldn't help but slap myself. I regretted why I masturbated and why I didn't lock the bathroom door. Now, everything was seen by the boss's wife. Who knows what the boss's wife would think of me now? I guess she must think that I am a man with low character and particularly wretched. I felt a little wronged. Because I have never touched a woman, and I don't want to masturbate, but sometimes I can't help it when I am stimulated by some external factors. Thinking of this, the enchanting figure of Ju Yeye, the secretary of Mr. Chen, appeared in my mind. It's all this damn woman's fault. If she hadn't been shameless and always seduced Mr. Chen in the car, how could I have developed this bad habit of masturbation? After all, I am also a normal man. Which normal man would be indifferent when seeing others doing these things in his back seat? Even if he is a monk, he can't have no reaction at all. What a slut. Thinking of Ju Yeye, I gritted my teeth, because the boss lady has always been a goddess in my heart. Every time I see the boss lady, I respect her very much and dare not have any blasphemy in my heart. I don't want to destroy the image in the boss lady's heart. How can I not feel uncomfortable when what happened just now happened? Don't regret it. So I took out my mobile phone and deleted the website that I had finally found before, and swore that I would never masturbate again in the future. If I do it again, I will be a fucking dog. But what should I do with the boss lady? Will she tell Mr. Chen what she saw in the bathroom just now? Although Mr. Chen also asked me to seduce the boss's wife, it was the first time that this happened. I was still unsure, afraid, and guilty. I even had the idea of sneaking back to the rental house. But in the end, I stayed with a nervous mood, but it was difficult to fall asleep. I was worried and fell asleep until dawn. Then I dreamed of many scenes. I dreamed of Ju Yeye sitting in the car and suddenly buried her head to serve Mr. Chen. I dreamed of me using Wu Girl in the bathroom, and then the boss's wife opened the door and looked at me in surprise. Slowly. In the dream, my attention was diverted by the clothes worn by the boss's wife. At this time, I realized that the boss's wife was wearing a thin nightgown, which was soft and close-fitting. Although there was clothes between us. But some scenery was still looming, which made people imagine. Then, the picture suddenly turned. I don't know when Mr. Chen and the boss's wife appeared in front of me. The boss's wife stood behind Mr. Chen, weak, aggrieved, and indignant, while Mr. Chen grabbed my collar with an angry face and lifted me up. The angry look seemed to want to eat me. "You Lin Dong, you actually did such a shameless thing in front of my wife." Then, I woke up in shock. As soon as I opened my eyes, I saw Mr. Chen sitting at the head of my bed. I was so scared that I sat up immediately, feeling extremely guilty. I stuttered, "Mr. Chen, Mr. Chen. What's that expression on your face?" Mr. Chen couldn't help laughing when he saw me panicking. "I saw you didn't get up for a long time, so I came to wake you up, but you got scared like this." At this point, Mr. Chen thought of something, and a half smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. He asked me, "Why, did you do something to make me feel sorry for you?" It was only then that I realized that I was dreaming. I subconsciously glanced behind Mr. Chen, and there was no figure of the boss's wife. Then I said evasively, "No, no. Really. Mr. Chen looked at me, smiling as if he was still smiling, and continued to ask. Chapter 7. You are still too young. Mr. Chen has been fighting in the business world for more than 10 years. He is a man with great aura. Under his smiling eyes, I suddenly felt guilty. The first thing I thought about was whether the boss's wife told Mr. Chen about the fact that she saw me masturbating in the bathroom last night. So Mr. Chen came to me early in the morning. However, people are lucky. I dare not take the initiative to tell what happened last night. I can only whisper with a guilty conscience, Mr. Chen, I am a rural person. I often do things without thinking about the future. If I do something wrong, please give me some advice. Don't always mention rural people. What's wrong with rural people? If you dig 3 generations back, who is not a rural person? I am also from a rural family. Now it's different. Many people have to look at my face to do things. You have to remember one thing: dignity and face are things that you have to fight for yourself, not given by others. If you look down on yourself, others will look down on you even less. It's meaningless to play the victim and act pitiful, don't you know? When Mr. Chen heard me say that I was a rural person, his smile disappeared on his face. He lectured me in a tone. I have to say that Mr. Chen is really a man with a very keen sense of smell. In fact, I did have some intention of playing the victim and acting pitiful. This is human instinct. When facing a superior, one will subconsciously reveal one's weak side, just like a wolf showing its belly to the leader to show its submission. I am the same. I am reluctant to give up everything I have now, not only the monthly salary of 5,000 yuan, but also the Mercedes-Benz E300 that I drive. These can bring me a great sense of vanity, and I don't want to see the boss's wife from now on. In this world, I think the boss's wife is the most beautiful and charming woman. It's just that because the boss's wife is too beautiful, I never dared to have any improper thoughts, until yesterday afternoon in the company's office. Mr. Chen planted a seed in my heart, and I had a restless thought of blaspheming the boss's wife. However, Mr. Chen's words also brought me a great shock. Dignity and face are fought for by oneself, not given by others. Men are the world. Who doesn't have some ambition? I know, Mr. Chen. I nodded excitedly, indicating that I knew. Seeing this, Mr. Chen nodded with satisfaction, and then smiled and mentioned the purpose of his visit again. He looked at me and smiled and asked directly, was it exciting to see last night? It was only then that I realized that Mr. Chen did not come here because of the boss's wife's complaint, but because of what I overheard last night. Thinking of the boss's wife calling husband beautifully and movingly last night, and the boss's wife's back curve like mutton fat jade, I couldn't help but nodded. Does my wife have a good figure? Mr. Chen asked again. I raised my head and looked at Mr. Chen, a little afraid to say it. After all, the boss's wife is Mr. Chen's wife, which is a taboo for men. I am afraid that Mr. Chen will be angry if I really say it. However, Mr. Chen did not mean to be angry at all. Instead, he handed me a cigarette and said with a smile, it's okay, you can say it boldly. I saw you last night. If I really minded, I would have asked you to get out long ago. I still didn't smoke the cigarette handed by Mr. Chen, and habitually put it on my ear. After all, as a driver, you must always remember your identity. If the boss is polite to you and gives you cigarettes regardless of the occasion, it means he respects you. But if you really give you cigarettes regardless of the occasion and hold them in your mouth, acting like you are worth 258,000, then you really don't know your identity. However, Mr. Chen obviously intended to get closer to me this time. Seeing that I put the cigarette on my ear, he took the cigarette away without saying anything, stuffed it into my mouth, and took out a lighter to light the cigarette for me. I was flattered and quickly said no, then lit the cigarette myself. Seeing this, Mr. Chen nodded with satisfaction and asked again, tell me the truth, is my wife's figure good? Good. The boss's wife's narrow and long back, like mutton fat jade, appeared in my mind, and I nodded courageously. Har har, you are still young. When you have experienced more women, you will know what a top-notch beauty is. My wife's figure is not just good. You need to know more about it to feel how good it is. At this point, Mr. Chen smiled meaningfully, and then sighed. If she hadn't been unable to give birth and Zhu Yeye was pregnant, I would not have been willing to give you a bargain. Otherwise, let alone letting you seduce my wife, even if you looked up at her for one more time, I would dig out your eyeballs. I didn't dare to answer, but thought of the embarrassing thing that was caught by the boss's wife last night, and turned to ask with a guilty conscience, where is the boss's wife? She's downstairs. If you hadn't told me, I would have forgotten. Get up quickly. Your sister-in-law has made breakfast. Come down to eat. After dinner, follow me to the company. When Mr. Chen saw me asking about the boss's wife, he realized that he came up to ask me to get up and eat, and urged me to get up and go downstairs. After going downstairs, I immediately looked for the boss lady. She was bringing the dishes out of the kitchen and putting them on the table. Unlike the soft, feminine home dress she wore yesterday, she was a little conservative today. She was also wearing a casual, homely linen shirt and linen pants, and a pair of blue lotus embroidered flat shoes similar to cloth shoes. She looked stunning at any time, and it was hard to guess her age. You can say she is 25 years old, a young mature woman. You can say she is 35 years old, a woman who can drip honey. Or she can be just 30 years old, which is not abrupt. In short, the boss lady Lin Mieshue is the kind of beautiful woman who makes people ignore her age at first sight. She is not as beautiful as Zhu Yeye on the surface. She has a complex temperament of dignity, elegance, and grace. In terms of appearance, she is also very stunning. Because of what happened last night, I went downstairs and carefully observed the boss lady's expression. However, the boss lady acted as if nothing had happened. After serving the food on the table, she sat down next to Mr. Chen with a normal expression. Her eating posture was very cultivated and elegant. She ate in small bites. Neither hurried nor slow. Compared to the way I ate when I was eating, I saw that the boss lady didn't say anything, so I didn't dare to say anything. I could only lower my head to eat. Although the boss lady looked normal and didn't mention what happened last night to Mr. Chen, but I could still feel a little alienated from the boss lady's face. After dinner, I saw the boss lady walking towards the kitchen, and I quickly got up and followed her. Then I looked at the beautiful boss lady, forced a smile, and took the initiative to please her. Boss lady, let me wash the dishes. No need. The boss lady refused in a cold voice. It's okay, I'll wash it. I was about to go forward. I told you not to. The boss lady glanced at me sideways, her eyes were calm and cold. This distant look hurt me all of a sudden. I froze in place, and for a moment I was a little overwhelmed. At the dining table, Mr. Chen smoked a cigarette after dinner, looking at the figures of me and the boss lady in the kitchen, thinking. Chapter 8: The Transparent Mr. Chen. On their way to the company, I thought of the boss lady's indifference, alienation, and absent-mindedness in the morning. In the past, the boss lady was very polite to me. Every time I sent Mr. Chen home, the boss lady would enthusiastically let me sit in the house for a while. She even secretly gave me a pack of soft Zhonghua from Mr. Chen once. Although she deliberately gave it to me in front of Mr. Chen in the name of stealing it, I still felt the boss lady's kindness to me, which was completely different from the indifference this morning. At this time, Mr. Chen's voice suddenly sounded from behind. What happened between you and my wife last night? I was startled when I heard it, and hurriedly said, no, nothing happened. I just said that. I saw that she was in a strange mood this morning, and she seemed a little unhappy. Mr. Chen pondered for a while, then looked up at me who was driving, and asked uncertainly, Xiao Lin, do you think she would have noticed when you opened the door last night? No. I recalled briefly, and then said with certainty, the boss's wife was behind my back at that time, and it was impossible for her to see me. Mr. Chen thought about it and felt that it was true. After so many years of marriage, he knew Lin Mieshue's personality. She was very conservative and classical. She was even shy to ask her to help her with a blowjob. If she found Lin Dong peeking last night, she would definitely get angry on the spot. Then Mr. Chen looked at me with lingering fear and said, but Xiaolin, I didn't expect you to be so bold. I just wanted you to eavesdrop, but I didn't expect you to be so bold that you dared to open the door and peek. Let me tell you, Lin Mieshue looks gentle, but she is actually conservative and strong-willed. If she finds out that you peeked at us in the same room, she will definitely not allow you to stay with me. It will be difficult for you to get close to her at that time. I didn't mean to open the door either. Seeing that Mr. Chen was angry, I quickly explained, I accidentally pressed the door handle, and then the door opened. I was also shocked at the time. So that's how it is. Mr. Chen suddenly realized, and then he didn't think about it anymore. He looked up at me and began to impart his experience, but it's not a bad thing for you to be careful. Women are different from us men. Men pay attention to direct access, while women pay attention to gradual progress. Especially when facing a conservative woman like Lin Mieshua, you can't be impatient. You have to conquer her little by little, let her adapt little by little, and then you can't help but fall in love with her. Xiaolin, I'm telling you, you can't ruin my big plan, okay? I nodded, indicating that I knew, and then I thought of Zhu Yeye, who took the initiative to serve Mr. Chen with her mouth in the car not long after she joined the company last year. She and Mr. Chen didn't take it step by step. Instead, it progressed so quickly that it was exaggerated. Then he asked curiously, "What about Zhu Yeye?" Mr. Chen glanced at me when he heard it. I knew I said the wrong thing with this look, because Mr. Chen and Zhu Yeye were just playing around before, and Mr. Chen was happy to share some of Zhu Yeye's wonderfulness in front of me. But it's different now. Mr. Chen is going to marry Zhu Yeye. The effect of the change in identity is a psychological change. Now Zhu Yeye is his fiancée and future wife. Of course, he doesn't want me to talk about Zhu Yeye in front of him anymore. However, Mr. Chen really treats me as his confidant. After looking at me for a while, he shook his head and said to me frankly, "Zhu Yeye's family is not well off. She is after my money. Including now that she wants to marry me, it is also for money. I can talk to her about money. Lin Mieshua is different from her. Lin Mieshua has never lacked money since she was a child. Therefore, you can't talk about money with her, you have to talk about feelings, so don't be impatient." I was moved to see Mr. Chen frankly speaking to me. I hesitated for a moment and asked, "Mr. Chen, can I tell you some of my ideas?" "Say it." Mr. Chen glanced at me, as if he already knew what I was going to say, but he still nodded and let me speak. I didn't hide it and said what I thought directly. "In fact, I think Zhu Yeye is not as good as the boss's wife. You shouldn't marry her. I think Zhu Yeye is too realistic. She can be with you, Mr. Chen, for money today, and she may be with another boss for money tomorrow." Mr. Chen's eyes were deep when he heard it. Instead of answering, he asked, "Do you know that she will become my wife soon?" I nodded with a stiff upper scalp, "I know." "Then you dare to say bad things about her in front of me? Aren't you afraid that I will be angry and ask you to get out?" "Then I will say it too. To be honest, Mr. Chen has been very good to me in the past 3 years. I really can't bear him to leave such a good boss's wife and marry a realistic woman like Zhu Yeye. So I made up my mind and said straight to the point, "Mr. Chen, I remember all the kindness you have shown me over the years. As a driver, I shouldn't say much, but I really don't want to see you leave such a good boss lady and marry a realistic woman who is only interested in money. I am thinking about you." At this time, Mr. Chen suddenly smiled and leaned forward to look at me and asked, "Xiaolin, what do you think of my appearance? Am I handsome?" "Handsome?" I answered without hesitation, even though in my eyes, Mr. Chen looked quite ordinary, just over 170 centimeters tall, neither tall nor handsome, and would not stand out in the crowd. But there is one thing, Mr. Chen is really charismatic. For me, charisma is quite important. However, Mr. Chen sneered and scolded me, "What are you talking about? Don't you know whether I am handsome or not? Since I am not handsome, what does Zhu Yeye want if not my money? Is it my inner qualities? Stop talking nonsense. As for whether she will be interested in a bigger boss in the future, that is also a matter for the future, and she has no platform to contact rich big bosses. In my circle, I am the ceiling." As for the economic strength, Mr. Chen is still very confident in himself, but when he said this, Mr. Chen fell silent again, and then looked at me and said earnestly, "As for my wife Lin Mieshua, I also know that she is very good, beautiful, and has temperament, 10 times, 100 times better than Zhu Yeye, but you have to know that when two people are together, it is not enough to just have feelings, and I have been married to her for 13 years, and she has not been able to give me a son, but can Zhu Yeye know that?" Speaking of this, Mr. Chen thought of something, and his mood suddenly became a little gloomy, and his words became more extreme. "You said that I earn so much money, but I don't even have a son. What's the use of earning so much money? Zhu Yeye is a bitch, I know this, but it's useless. She is pregnant in less than half a year with me, and what's wrong with her greed for money? I have money, I can ask her to do anything, let her kneel in front of me and give me a blowjob, she will kneel down and give me a blowjob obediently, what's the problem with marrying her? I don't know what Mr. Chen has experienced in the 13 years of marriage. But I can hear that Mr. Chen seems to have a lot of unspeakable secrets, so when Mr. Chen spoke excitedly, I always kept quiet as a listener. After Mr. Chen vented, his emotions calmed down a little, lit a cigarette, lowered the car window, and looked outside. Lin Dong. Mr. Chen suddenly called my name. I looked at Mr. Chen from the rearview mirror with some surprise. He usually called me Xiao Lin and rarely called me by my full name. Mr. Chen didn't look at me this time. Instead, he looked out of the car and said to me in a somewhat depressed tone, "There are not many good women in this world. In the future, if you can chase a woman with money, spend less emotion on her. If you can chase a woman with emotion, spend more money on her." While talking, we also came to the company. From a distance, I saw a tall woman wearing a business suit, black stockings, and delicate makeup like Daiji standing at the door of the company. Carrying a limited edition LV bag, she came to greet the car gracefully when she saw it stop. Zhu Yeye, Mr. Chen's mistress. She was also the culprit who forced Mr. Chen to ask me to seduce the boss's wife. Chapter 9. What mistress? You are my wife. That's right. I admit that Zhu Yeye is very beautiful, prettier than the women in my village. Not only is she well educated, but she also knows how to dress and has a good taste in clothes. I have shamelessly used Zhu Yeye as an object of fantasy several times to vent my feelings. But this does not prevent me from hating Zhu Yeye. I am not a double-faced person, but I don't like such women with casual private lives, and I look down on them. Compared with the dignified and graceful boss lady, they are simply 10 streets worse, and they are not necessarily prettier than the boss lady. But Zhu Yeye obviously did not pay attention to me, the driver. As soon as I parked the car, she immediately ran over to open the door for Mr. Chen with joy. She first called him husband sweetly, and then took Mr. Chen's arm and asked, "Husband, how did you say that you and Lin Mieshua divorced? Have you told her?" "Not yet. Mr. Chen now has a headache when he hears about this matter." "Why haven't you revealed your cards yet?" Zhu Yeye's delicate face immediately showed unhappiness when she heard this. She reached out her hand and gently stroked her belly, saying disappointedly, "Husband, my belly is getting bigger and bigger. How can I face people in the future? Last night, my son kicked my belly while I was sleeping. It hurt me so much." As she spoke, Zhu Yeye's expression changed from unhappy to aggrieved. Tears seemed to be about to fall from her beautiful peach blossom eyes. This delicate look made Mr. Chen feel distressed. However, Mr. Chen has not divorced the boss's wife after all. And since they were at the entrance of the company, Mr. Chen couldn't show his affection to Zhu Yeye too blatantly. "Oh, little guy, you kicked your mother when you were so young. Be careful or your dad will beat you." Mr. Chen first scolded Zhu Yeye in anger at her belly, and then coaxed her a few words, asking her to come to his office to talk about anything. Although Zhu Yeye was somewhat reluctant, she still followed Mr. Chen into the company half-heartedly. I also have my own office in the company, right next to Mr. Chen's office. Usually, when I send Mr. Chen to the company, I have nothing to do, so I play King of Glory or Peace Elite in the office. I saw Zhu Yeye's behavior just now, and I was full of disdain in my heart. It was too fake. Although I have never been married, I still know basic common sense. Zhu Yeye has only been pregnant for more than 2 months. How could the child kick her belly? And she knew that she would give birth to a son before the baby came out? It's really a goblin. I was a little speechless. I don't know what happened to Mr. Chen, who is usually very smart in the business world. When he came in front of Zhu Yeye, he seemed to have lowered his intelligence. When Zhu Yeye touched her belly just now, it was obvious that she was deliberately sticking out her belly. Alas. It's true that lust makes people lose their minds. I looked at Zhu Yeye's charming figure swaying left and right like a water snake when she walked, and I could only think like this in my heart, but I also knew that it was useless for me to think like this. After all, I was just a driver and could not make decisions for the boss. In the office. After seeing that there were no outsiders, Zhu Yeye came to Mr. Chen's desk, looked at Mr. Chen delicately and asked again, "Husband, when are you going to divorce Lin Mieshua?" "Yeye, you ask every day, don't you feel annoyed?" Mr. Chen was asked all the time, and he was a little impatient, and couldn't help but get angry. "I told you that I will divorce my wife as soon as possible. You will know after the divorce. What's the point of you urging me now? Do you think I want to urge you?" Seeing that Mr. Chen was angry, Zhu Yeye couldn't help but point to her belly and said excitedly, "Chen Haifeng, do you have a conscience? I'm telling you, it's not that I want to rush you, but my belly is getting bigger day by day. I can wait for you, but my son can't. My belly will be visible in half a month at most. I'm a girl who just graduated from college and haven't married yet. If my parents ask me whose child is in my belly, what should I say? Having a baby before marriage? Do I want to be a human being? And your wife? She is your wife, and I am yeah, right. Speaking, Ju Ye's tears immediately fell. Ju Ye has peach blossom eyes, and tears hanging on her face instantly make people feel pitiful. Mr. Chen had heard this passage countless times and was somewhat immune to it. He sat there unmoved and said, "Don't talk too much to me. I promised you that I would divorce Lin Mieshue, and I will definitely divorce her. And don't talk about whether it's a son or not. It's only been more than 2 months, and you know it must be a son. You don't believe me? Look at this." Ju Ye looked disappointed and sat at Mr. Chen, then took out a certificate from her bag and threw it in front of Mr. Chen. This was a certificate for the Hong Kong blood test to identify the gender of a baby. The result was a male. Mr. Chen was also a person who had stepped into the upper class through the relationship of the boss's family. He knew that in Hong Kong, the gender of a baby can be determined through a blood test as soon as it is pregnant. After seeing that the gender identification result was a male, he was simply ecstatic. "I know you've always wanted a son. I wanted to give you a surprise today, but you didn't believe me." After Mr. Chen read the certificate, Ju Ye's eyes were filled with tears. She looked pitiful and heartbroken. After she finished speaking, she broke down and wanted to hit her stomach with her hand. "Forget it, since you don't want a son, I don't want one either. I don't want to marry you, woo woo woo. Don't be angry, I was wrong, it was all my fault." Mr. Chen was shocked when he saw this, and he quickly stopped her and coaxed her left and right. In the end, he coaxed Ju Ye, who had a breakdown, at the cost of a burgundy Mercedes-Benz C260. Ju Ye sat on Mr. Chen's lap, her peach blossom eyes still filled with tears, and she said pitifully, "Husband, I don't care about the car, I care about whether you care about me. Do you know how sad I am when you call her wife and call me Yaya? I will be jealous. Yes, I was wrong. You are my dear wife, and Lin Mieshue is just my ex-wife." After knowing that Ju Ye was pregnant with a son, Mr. Chen's attitude changed 180 degrees. After having a son, he can go back to his hometown to celebrate the new year with his chest held high. Having a son in middle age. You can imagine how happy he is. Ju Ye heard this and then turned from anger to joy, and then asked in a low voice, "What about your divorce with her? My belly is getting bigger and bigger, and my parents have to come to see me during this period. I don't know how to tell them. If my father knows that I am a mistress, he will definitely beat me to death." "What mistress? Don't say it so harshly. You are my wife." Mr. Chen said angrily, and then told Ju Ye about his plan. "But wife, you really have to give me some time. I have let Lin Dong live in my house now." "Lin Dong living in your house, what does it have to do with your divorce?" Ju Ye looked at Mr. Chen in surprise. Mr. Chen talked about his plan. "I plan to let Lin Dong seduce Lin Mieshue. As long as Lin Mieshue goes to bed with Lin Dong, I can legitimately file for divorce with her, so that even her father can't find any fault with me." "What? You let Lin Dong seduce Lin Mieshue?" When Ju Ye heard Mr. Chen's plan, her face suddenly changed and became a little unnatural. Chapter 10: The Fickle Vixen. "Fuck, number 3, you idiot, what are you doing lying in the room? I was beaten, and you didn't come out to help. I was playing Peace Elite in the office. There were 4 teammates in total, and the other 2 died and quit. The one who cursed was teammate number 1 who survived to the finals, but I was too lazy to pay attention to him and continued to lie in the corner of the room and wait patiently. Now it's the finals, I don't know the enemy situation outside, how can I just go out and die? Soon, I heard footsteps, and the moment the person came out, I immediately raised my gun and shot him to death. Good luck, I won the chicken." At this time, number 1 couldn't help but praise again. "Fuck, number 3, you have a trick, so shady, awesome." I continued to ignore him, quit the game, and planned to start the next game. At this time, the door of the office opened, and I knew that the person who came in was Ju Ye even without looking. Because the perfume she wore was very unique. It was their Chanel Encounter perfume. Mr. Chen gave it to her. Soon, Ju Ye came to my side, with a faint scent of perfume. Even if I didn't want to look, I could see her straight and slender legs under her black business skirt. Wearing a pair of high heels. This made her look taller and more three-dimensional. I have to say that Juyeya is really a fairy, especially when she stands next to me with this pair of round and straight beautiful legs. It's very life-threatening, and always makes people want to touch them. However, Juyeya didn't seem to realize this at all, but stood beside me and leaned over to look at my phone, saying in a sweet tone, "Are you playing PUBG? Can you take me with you?" "No." I refused without hesitation. "Why?" Juyeya said she couldn't understand. "You are too bad," I said without raising my head. Although Juyeya is going to be the future boss's wife, when she first joined the company, I was Mr. Chen's personal driver and she was very polite to me, so I developed the habit of talking to her casually. It doesn't matter if I am bad, it's enough if you are good, otherwise how can you show your skills? Just when I was about to ignore her and start the next game, Juyeya's voice suddenly came closer to me and sounded in my ears, accompanied by a tingling breath. It blew on my neck, and I felt that at that moment, the hairs on my neck stood up instantly. Turning my head, I saw Juyeya's delicate face was close to me at some point, with a smile on the corner of her mouth, red lips, and bright lipstick. A pair of peach blossom eyes seemed to be able to speak and flowed on my face. I swallowed subconsciously, then glanced down instinctively. Juyeya had a good figure. Although she looked thin, she had a lot of body inside her clothes. Because she was bending over, two amazing white arcs showed through the neckline of her white tube top. I forgot about the game I was going to play, and was a little distracted by the whiteness in front of me. It was not until Juyeya's soft voice sounded in my ears, "Does it look good?" that I suddenly came to my senses, and then immediately put on a disdainful face and turned away like a gentleman. I cursed Juyeya in my heart for being shameless. She was just deliberately flirting in front of me. Juyeya also found it funny when she saw this. She sat down with a smile on her face and looked at me. She said with interest, "You looked, I didn't call you a pervert. Why are you being so arrogant?" "Who looked?" I turned around as if my tail was stepped on, and solemnly retorted, "I didn't look. You deliberately bent down in front of me and blew on my neck. I could see it as soon as I turned my head. Can you blame me? I don't want to look at you. Then let me ask you, is it beautiful?" Seeing that I was serious, Juyeya was not annoyed, but smiled even more. She put her hands on the table, and then tightened her arms slightly in the middle, which made her two white breasts, which were already very attractive, more obvious. In order to avoid suspicion, I turned my head away and deliberately didn't look. "Is it big?" Juyeya obviously didn't intend to let me go. She spoke again with a voice as soft as orchid. It was as soft as a spring breeze blowing into your heart bit by bit, making you gradually unable to calm down. I couldn't help but ignore her. "Do you want to touch it? It's very soft." At this time, Juyeya approached me again, her red lips slightly opened, and she even seemed to be sticking to me. In an instant, I felt the warmth and softness on my arm. I stood up reflexively, first glanced at the direction of Mr. Chen's office with a guilty conscience, and then immediately lowered my voice and said to Juyeya, the goblin, angrily, "Are you sick? What if Mr. Chen comes in and sees it? If he sees it, he will see it." Juyeya giggled and didn't care at all. "Get lost." In my eyes, Juyeya is a shameless woman, so I spoke very bluntly, "Juyeya, I don't object to you seducing Mr. Chen. It's like Juyu fighting Huangari, one is willing to fight and the other is willing to be beaten. There's nothing to say, but can you please keep a distance from me in the future? You don't care, but I still need this job." I don't know if my words were a bit harsh. After hearing this, Juyeya's smile disappeared all of a sudden, and then she looked at me without saying a word. At this time, I noticed that Juyeya was also very beautiful when she was serious. There was no frivolous meaning in her expression. It even made people feel a little bit unbearable. "Lin Dong." Juyeya looked at me, her tone was completely different from her usual frivolous tone. She asked with a hint of disappointment and sadness, "Am I a shameless, cheap woman in your eyes? Even if I get close to you, you think I'm dirtying you and tainting you." I have never seen Juyeya look like this. Usually she is very frivolous and playful. In front of Mr. Chen, she is like a goblin. Where has she ever shown such a pitiful expression? I don't think so. I denied it with a guilty conscience. Forget it. Juyeya looked lonely, smiled self-deprecatingly, and said, In fact, I know you think so even if you don't say it. It's not just you. Everyone in the company thinks I'm a lowly mistress who relies on my body to get to the top, so you look down on me. I understand. Who made me born without an umbrella? Then if I want to get ahead, I can only run hard. I really don't think so. So, I apologize to you, don't be angry. I saw Ju Yeye was sad, but I felt a little embarrassed and regretful. After all, I am a man. How can I say such ugly words to a woman? Ju Yeye wants to make her life better, which is understandable. And she is still a pregnant woman. I feel more and more that what I said just now was a bit too much. Ju Yeye looked at me with a painful and complicated look in her eyes. Do you think that all things can be solved by apologizing? I didn't say that. I denied it, then continued to apologize and asked, what do you want to calm down? Ju Yeye lowered her head and said in a lost voice, as long as I calm down, you can do anything. Okay, what do you want me to do? Although I felt something was wrong, I still agreed, and then I heard a strange sound, and then I saw the smile on Ju Yeye's mouth gradually spread. Then she laughed forward and backward. Where were the inferiority, loss, self-mockery, pain and other emotions before? Ju Yeye's evil plan succeeded, and her face suddenly became lively, and her bright and attractive lips moved closer to me, her eyes full of cunning. Kiss me, and I won't be angry anymore. Fuck. I stood there in a daze, dumbfounded by Ju Yeye's polar reversal for a moment. It took me a long time to react. I was fooled by this vixen Ju Yeye. Chapter 11. I'm very obedient. You are sick. After I realized what was happening, I quickly moved away from Ju Yeye. This woman is a witch, moody, and nothing she says is true. She is obviously about to marry Mr. Chen. Now she lets me kiss her. But I don't know why, when I thought of this, I subconsciously looked at Ju Yeye's lips. They were plump and peach-like with lipstick on. It really makes people want to take a bite. Ju Yeye was still giggling, not annoyed, but leaning against the desk, smiling at me ambiguously. Don't you want to kiss me? In no mood. I denied it immediately. Although I also wanted to kiss Ju Yeye, after all, she was really pretty and had a sexy body, but in my heart I looked down on women like her who relied on their bodies to get ahead. So conflicting emotions arise in my heart. The most important thing is that if I kissed Ju Yeye, Mr. Chen would cut me into pieces. So I deliberately snorted at Ju Yeye again. Don't act so naughty in front of me. I don't have any feelings for you at all. Do you understand how to stay calm even if you are in my arms? How about letting me sit down and try it? Ju Yeye looked at the position of my legs and suddenly said something that seemed to indicate something. I was speechless for a moment, and then the scene of the boss's wife sitting on Mr. Chen with her back to me last night suddenly appeared in my mind, and then I reacted uncontrollably. At this time, Ju Yeye looked at my lower body as if she had discovered a new continent, and said exaggeratedly, what's going on? Didn't someone say that he could remain calm even if he sat on someone's lap? How come he already had his tent erected before I even sat on him? It has nothing to do with you. I'm not reacting because of you. My face turned red immediately. I found a chair to sit down, hunching my body so that Ju Yeye couldn't see me. But it was strange. Although I still hated Ju Yeye, I seemed to secretly hope that she would be bolder. Then after realizing this idea, I felt it even stronger, but at the same time I secretly cursed myself for being useless and having no self-control at all. Isn't this exactly like being tough in words but honest in body? Ju Yeye didn't know what I was thinking. She looked around and said in an exaggerated tone, it seems like I'm the only one here. It has nothing to do with you anyway. I didn't dare to say that I had a reaction because I thought of the boss's wife, and I didn't dare to say that I hoped Ju Yeye would be bolder, because Ju Yeye, this vixen, was really bold. I feel like crying but I have no tears. How come there is such a difficult woman like Ju Yeye in the world? Seeing that I was avoiding her, Ju Yeye stopped playing around and sat next to me. She asked, I heard that Chen Haifeng is asking you to seduce Lin Mieshue. I raised my head immediately after hearing this. Did Mr. Chen tell you that? Right. Ju Yeye nodded, then looked at me and asked softly, what do you think? What can I think? Seeing that Ju Yeye stopped teasing me, I relaxed and said with some frustration, the boss lady is beautiful and has a good temperament. There is no way she would be interested in a small person like me. Ju Yeye smiled and said, are you so unconfident in yourself? No. When I thought of the boss lady's distant attitude in the morning, I suddenly felt lost and sad. If this continues, let alone seducing the boss lady into having sex with me, it would be good enough if the boss lady doesn't kick me out of her house. Julia didn't want to listen anymore. She held her chin, looked at me sideways, and suddenly asked with a smile, "What about me, me or Lin Mieshua, who do you like?" Of course I like the boss lady. I looked at Julia strangely. I felt that she was a little weird today, so I subconsciously asked, "What's wrong with you today? Why are you a little bit nervous?" It would have been fine if I hadn't asked. As soon as I asked, Julia pouted and said aggrievedly, "I'm jealous." Huh? Who are you jealous of? I was shocked when I heard that. Julia looked at me, her tone unchanged. "What do you think?" I had never heard Julia say that she liked me before, so I was stunned when I heard that. Then I avoided her gaze, forced a smile, and said unnaturally, "Stop it, you're going to marry Mr. Chen." "I want to marry Mr. Chen. It has nothing to do with my liking for you." "How could it be?" I couldn't understand. "You like me, but you want to marry Mr. Chen. What's so hard to understand? For some people, if you like them, you can only like them, you can't own them. I need money at this stage, and Chen Haifeng happens to have money, so I need to marry him." At this point, Julia looked up at me and asked soberly, "Is this hard to understand?" I didn't say anything, because I thought of what Mr. Chen said to me in the car when I came to the company. Mr. Chen said that there was nothing wrong with Julia being greedy for money, and he happened to be rich. In other words, both people get what they need. One is attracted by the other's money, and the other is attracted by the other's young body. Both of them live very soberly. But I couldn't accept it. Julia actually said that she liked me and wanted to marry Mr. Chen. Isn't this weird? So I looked at her tentatively and asked, "Do you really like me? Why do you like me?" "I don't have any money." Julia asked back, "Then who else should I like? In Chen Haifeng's company, except for you who are the same age as me and look okay, the others are all decoration workers in their 40s and 50s. I don't like you, so how could I like them?" I was speechless again, but I have to say that after Julia confessed to me, I felt much less disgusted with her. After thinking about it, I couldn't help but say to Julia, "Sometimes money is not the only thing. Although Mr. Chen has agreed to marry you now, he doesn't look down on you. Do you know what he said about you in the car this morning? He said you were." I thought Julia would be angry when I said this, but unexpectedly, Julia didn't seem angry at all. Instead, she continued to ask, "So what?" Seeing that she was still stubborn, I got angry. "How come you have no sense of shame? Isn't this enough? What else do you want to hear? Do you want to hear me say that Mr. Chen likes you and his money, likes you to be obedient, and asks you to kneel down and give him a blowjob, so you kneel down and give him a blowjob?" "You?" "Yes." Julia interrupted me. "He asked me to kneel down and give him a blowjob, so I knelt down and gave him a blowjob. I am very obedient." Hearing this, I couldn't help but look at Julia for several seconds without saying a word. I was really angry. Others can look down on her, but how can she trample on her own dignity like this? Angry. When Julia saw that I was angry, she suddenly started laughing again and came closer to me playfully. I ignored her. As a result, Julia put her hand on my leg, leaned forward, her collar exposed, and said slowly and seductively, "Do you want it? If you want, I will give you a blowjob too." Chapter 12 Daily Pretends in the Friends Circle. Gurgle. I couldn't help swallowing when I heard that, and my eyes were immediately attracted by Julia's plump and sexy red lips. I had also seen the scene of her serving Mr. Chen with her mouth in the car several times. At that time, I wanted to sacrifice myself more than once. But those thoughts were always kept in my heart, never spoken out, and I knew they were impossible to achieve. As a result, Julia actually asked me if she wanted to give me a blowjob. At this moment, all rationality was gone. All thoughts that Julia was a witch and that she looked down on her for marrying Mr. Chen for money disappeared. The only remaining thought is to try it out. Julia also understood my feelings from my eyes, chuckled, and then her slender hands with nail polish began to wander on my legs. It feels very special. My whole body suddenly stiffened and tensed. Just when I was feeling the most excited, Julia suddenly changed her vixen look, stood up, and said to me with a smile, "Do you really want to? I was just teasing you." Who thought about it? My face flushed red, and I immediately sat up straight and started scolding Juyeya. Did I say anything just now? Don't be so self-indulgent. There is no way I would like a woman like you who is greedy for money. TSK, I don't know whose seat almost collapsed just now, with legs spread wider than anyone else. Forget it, I won't talk to you anymore. You should spend more time on Lin Mieshue and seduce her into bed as soon as possible so that I can marry Chen Haifeng. Ju Yeya didn't care at all about the harsh words I said. She said something disdainful, then turned around and walked out of the office in a very happy mood. Grass. What a slut. When I saw Ju Yeya leaving, I cursed her in my heart in frustration and felt even more disgusted with her. But soon, my heart was filled with the depressed feeling of not getting what I wanted. My mind was filled with the 2 smears of white on Ju Yeya's collar and her beautiful red lips. Then, the scenes of her serving Mr. Chen in the car and the boss lady sitting on Mr. Chen last night appeared in my mind one by one. This made me feel very uncomfortable, and I almost hated Ju Yeya in my heart. While thinking, I picked up the mobile phone on the table, looked at the screen and began to struggle fiercely with my thoughts. The site has been deleted again. Can't find a problem. But I swore last night that I would never watch porn again. If I watch it again, I'll be a jerk. But soon, I barked twice in a low voice, then decisively picked up my phone and went to the toilet outside while looking for the website. After all, this was not the first or second time I had been a dog, and I had made similar vows before. The company's toilet is not a separate toilet. So I just hid inside. In the small space, I found the website. At this time, Teacher Kang's teaching must be the most effective. However, the annoying thing is that too many people come into the company's bathroom. I can't turn on the sound. Just when I found a copy of Teacher Kang's uncensored movie and was about to rush in, a caller ID suddenly appeared on the phone screen. It was a call from Mr. Chen. When working in the workplace, the boss's matters must always come first, so I answered the phone without saying a word. Where are you? I'm going to the Lan Ya cafe to meet a client. Go get the car ready. After the call was connected, Mr. Chen's voice came out from the phone. I'm in the bathroom. I'll be out now. After hearing that, I could only quickly close the website. However, when I walked out of the bathroom, I saw that Vixen Ju Yeya was leaning against the wall in the corridor, looking at me with a teasing smile on her face. I suddenly felt like I was caught doing something wrong, but I couldn't refute it because it would mean I felt guilty, so I gritted my teeth and went downstairs to prepare the car as if nothing had happened. Masturbating. Just when I walked in front of Ju Yeya suddenly asked me with a smile. You're crazy. I cursed and walked away quickly with a guilty conscience. Even without a mirror, I knew my face was extremely red because I could feel it getting hot. It was also the first time I realized that a person's smile could be so annoying. Ju Yeya's smile was clearly making fun of me. Snort. Don't let me find the chance. If I find the chance, I will make sure you can neither live nor die. Get in the car. I turned on the air conditioner to maximum in advance to cool down the car. Mr. Chen's car is a Mercedes-Benz E300 with a vertical logo. Touching the leather steering wheel, I felt much better because the Mercedes-Benz E300 is my favorite car. The reason is simple. You can take a photo of the sign for your moments, but you don't need to take a photo of the steering wheel. You take photos of your friend's circle and deliberately take photos of the steering wheel logo. How low is that? Others will know you are showing off at a glance. But the Mercedes-Benz E300 is different. When taking photos of the road normally, just show the front logo. 3-pointed star. The ads are also quite impressive. Dear Mercedes-Benz owner, may the 3-pointed star emblem illuminate your career and future. Is he handsome? It's so handsome. Silent pretense is the most deadly. After all, as a low-key person like me, the habit of pretense that is too high profile is not suitable for me. This is why I like the Mercedes-Benz E300. Although Mr. Chen is about to change to the S400, a higher-end Maybach, for an ordinary person like me who only earns 5,000 yuan a month, the Mercedes-Benz E300 is already the ceiling. Since it is July now and the weather is quite hot, Mr. Chen usually waits for me to turn on the air conditioner and the temperature in the car drops before he turns it down, so he leaves me plenty of time. I calmly took out my phone, played Beyonce, No More Hesitation, and then took a photo of the front of the cab, while dubbing the video with a nonchalant tone. Life is not easy. I don't even have time for a lunch break. I still have to negotiate contracts with clients in such a hot day. After shooting the video, I checked the content of the video and found that there was nothing missing. I blocked Mr. Chen from seeing it, and then posted it on WeChat Moments. After it was successfully sent, I put away my phone and waited quietly for the likes and comments on WeChat Moments. The reason why I don't keep staring at the circle of friends. That's because I think that's too loser, and I also like to selectively reply after the number of likes and comments increases. 5 minutes later, I looked at the post again and saw that indeed, several people had liked it, and there were also several comments. Wow, old classmate, you're so awesome. You even drive a Mercedes-Benz. This is a classmate I just added last week, his name is Xiuyang. As long as there is money to be made, who needs a lunch break? By the way, Brother Dong, do you need a driver? I have 5 years of driving experience and my driving skills are pretty good. This is Wu Pinyu. When he was in school, he was very good at changing with the times. He would follow whoever was rich and doing well. When I drove Mr. Chen's car back to my hometown during the Chinese New Year last year, he added me as a friend, and Xiuyang was also added as a friend through him. From the Chinese New Year to now, Wu Pinyu has always wanted to come to Binhai to hang out with me, but the problem is that I'm still just a driver. If I let you come over, won't I be exposed? So I didn't reply to any of them. The more you talk, the more mistakes you make. Not bad. After following Mr. Chen for 3 years, I have learned to speak less. Only by speaking less can others not see through your cards. But a new comment gave me the urge to respond. Her name is Li Yang. My high school classmate. She is very beautiful and has a good temperament, especially her handwriting is very beautiful, both regular script and cursive script, and the strokes are very sharp. I had a crush on her for 3 years in high school, but I didn't dare to confess to her in the end, which is a great pity. Thinking of Li Yang's long flowing hair and quiet temperament in high school, I was excited. I wondered if I could ask Li Yang to attend a class reunion when I go home for the Chinese New Year this year, and then have a drink. Maybe something could happen between us. Just when I was about to open Li Yang's friend box and reply to her message, Mr. Chen walked out of the company gate, and with him was the vixen Zhu Yeye. Seeing this, I put away my phone immediately without having time to reply to Li Yang's message. Chapter 13, One House in Half a Year. First send Yeye back to Crown 1, then go to Lanier Coffee. After getting in the car, Mr. Chen told me the itinerary below. 3 years of driving career have made me very familiar with Binhai's roads. Crown 1 is a relatively high-end residential area in the center of Binhai City. Initially, this house was rented. 2 months ago, Zhu Yeye became pregnant, so she pestered Mr. Chen to buy it for her. One house every 6 months. Worth 3 million. Thinking of this, I can't help but understand Zhu Yeye a little bit. If she goes to the factory to hammer in screws, how long will it take her to be able to afford a house in Crown 1? If only there was such a rich woman, and she wasn't too ugly. Maybe I would be willing to do that too. Sell the Crown number 1 house and get 3 million, then buy a house for 2 million, leaving 1 million. I will buy a Mercedes-Benz E300 for 500,000 and save 500,000 in a card. I can never spend so much money in my lifetime. Of course, I definitely won't lick it. This thought suddenly popped up in my mind. Ever since Mr. Chen found out that Zhu Yeye was pregnant with a boy, he became much closer to her, as if he really treated her as his wife. After getting in the car, he touched Zhu Yeye's slightly bulging belly more than once, and spoke to the little one in her belly as a father. Zhu Yeye also let Mr. Chen touch her belly, but her eyes were always on me driving, with a half smile on her lips. I also saw Zhu Yeye looking at me in the rearview mirror, and then I thought of what she said to me in the office, "Do you want it? If you want, I can give you a blowjob too." This sentence is really too destructive. Especially since I have never touched a woman before and I am full of vigor and vitality, I am particularly curious about this and want to try it. Just when I was a little distracted, Zhu Yeye looked at me and suddenly spoke, "Lin Dong, why is your face so red?" Really? It's hot, right? I was startled when I heard her words because I felt guilty. Then I subconsciously looked at myself in the rearview mirror. My face was not red at all. I immediately realized that Zhu Yeye was deliberately teasing me again. When Zhu Yeye saw my panic, the corners of her mouth curved up, and her peach blossom eyes were filled with a smile of success, clearly mocking the embarrassment I had made in the office before. However, since Mr. Chen was sitting next to her, even though I was so angry, I couldn't do anything about her. I could only pretend that I didn't understand anything and continue driving. Look steadily forward. But soon. I was driving when I felt something was wrong behind me. I could faintly hear the whispers of Mr. Chen and Zhu Yeye. Mr. Chen hesitated and whispered. That's not good, Xiaolin is still here. It's okay, he's driving, and I'm using my mouth to help you, so he can't see a thing. Zhu Yeye's voice was louder than Mr. Chen's. She lowered her voice on purpose, but it was just loud enough for me to hear. She asked in a low voice, do you want me to help you? Want? Mr. Chen hesitated for a while, but finally began to fall. Grass. I couldn't help but curse out loud in my heart. Zhu Yeye did this on purpose. Although I didn't look back now, I could already imagine what they were doing now, so I felt depressed and annoyed. It's obvious. Zhu Yeye did it on purpose. Ever since Mr. Chen decided to marry Zhu Yeye 2 months ago, he and Zhu Yeye rarely did that kind of thing in the car. They usually went to a hotel or simply went to Crown 1 and asked me to wait for him in the car. Gurgle. I finally couldn't hold back my curiosity and secretly glanced at the rearview mirror. I saw Mr. Chen leaning back in comfort, while Zhu Yeye buried her head in Mr. Chen's legs. Can't see the details. But the less you can see it, the more tormenting it becomes. And soon. Zhu Yeye was fine too. She reached forward, opened the armrest box, and took out a few tissues from it. Then her face became flushed, as if she had drunk alcohol. She vomited something and wrapped it up with tissues. I know everything. But I can't say it. Half a year ago, I developed the bad habit of making friends with the fifth lady because of this. Who the hell can stand this happening every other day? You are eunuch, right? You should be able to recover a little bit after being tortured by Zhu Yeye, the vixen, right? Thinking of this, I was filled with resentment and looked at Zhu Yeye hatefully through the rearview mirror. Zhu Yeye happened to be looking at me. When she saw me looking at her, she smiled a little and wiped her lower lip from right to left with her thumb. Then her red lips rolled like waves. Very irritating. I felt that I would not be able to get off the car after arriving at the place. If I did, I would definitely make a fool of myself. In the past, it didn't matter. Mr. Chen would tease me when he saw the tent and ask if he wanted to take me to Shuyunjian to lose my virginity. Maybe the girl there would even give me a red envelope. Now. He can beat me to death. Fortunately, I didn't need to get out of the car to send Zhu Yeye to Crown 1. After she got off the car, I drove Mr. Chen to the Lan Ya coffee shop, which is also a very famous coffee shop in Binhai. It's called a coffee shop. It's more like a casual fast food restaurant. Because most of the bosses come here to drink tea, eat melon seeds, and order some snacks, Mr. Chen likes to choose a window seat in this coffee shop and talk business with customers while basking in the sun. After Mr. Chen entered the door of Lan Ya Coffee, I was finally free, and immediately took out my cell phone to find the WeChat of my high school goddess Li Yang. The reason was simply that the boss lady and Zhu Yeye had brought me so much stimulation in the past 2 days. I also began to desire women. Whether it's the boss lady or Zhu Yeye, I know very well that there is a gap in status between me and them, and it is too difficult to overthrow them. To put it bluntly, I just feel a little inferior. But it's different when facing my classmates and Li Yang. I don't feel inferior to Li Yang and the others. In fact, I even feel a little superior because I drive a Mercedes-Benz every day. So I hope that through chatting with my high school classmate Li Yang, some stories will happen when I return to my hometown. After all, she was my first love that I once had a crush on. After many years, which man doesn't he want to have a beautiful story with his first love? Sorry, I was driving just now, so I didn't reply to you. After much consideration, I finally sent this message to Li Yang, and then I didn't send any more messages. The reason is simple: men are more impatient and women are slower to warm up, so you can't appear too impatient at this time. Moreover, Li Yang's personality is similar to that of the boss's wife, both are conservative and quiet. It would be bad if I was too hasty and scared her. You can't eat hot tofu in a hurry. Anyway, there is still half a year before I go home for the Chinese New Year. There is no rush to wait. After all, the feeling of letting things come naturally will be better. But what makes me depressed is Liang didn't reply to my message immediately. Just as I waited for a while and couldn't help but send a second message, Mr. Chen called again. As soon as the call was connected, I heard Mr. Chen say on the phone, "My wife fell down and got injured at home. I can't leave here. Please go back and take her to the hospital for a checkup." Mr. Chen, I subconsciously thought of the boss lady's distant attitude in the morning, and then felt a little guilty. I didn't dare to go back and face her alone, but Mr. Chen hung up the phone as soon as he finished speaking. Chapter 14: The Injured Lady Boss. Boss Lady. Boss Lady. When I arrived at the entrance of Kanglan Villa, I sat in the car for a long time before I mustered up the courage to go in. However, when I entered the living room, I found that it was empty. There was no sign of the proprietress either. I think the boss's wife might be in her bedroom on the second floor. But when I got to the corridor on the second floor and saw the boss lady's bedroom door just within reach, I suddenly became nervous. In a trance, it seemed as if I was back to last night when I tiptoed over here to eavesdrop on the noise. Then the image of Mr. Chen lying on the bed with the proprietress facing away from me appeared. The back is snow white and long. Very beautiful. My mind was filled with the shy voice of the boss lady last night that made me feel numb to the bone. The boss lady has a very nice voice. Thinking of the boss lady's lewd music last night, I felt like I was going crazy and couldn't help pinching myself. Lin Dong, how come you don't have any self-control at all? You were caught by the boss lady while exercising your biceps last night. Now you go to see the boss's wife with a tent on your head. What will she think? This will make you a pervert and they will call the police to have you arrested. After reflecting for a while, I put the blame on Zhu Yeye, that vixen. If she hadn't teased me again and again in the company, I wouldn't have been thinking about women all the time. And I originally had a special respect for the boss lady. As for Zhu Yeye saying that she liked me, I didn't take it to heart at all. This woman is the one that Yin Susu mentioned. She is a liar. The more beautiful she is, the more likely she is to lie. It just so happens that Zhu Yeye looks like a liar. I took a deep breath at the door and calmed down for about 5 minutes before I started walking towards the boss's bedroom. However, when I got to the door, I found that the boss's door was not closed and only a small gap was open. The sequelae of yesterday's peeking came again. For some unknown reason, I didn't knock on the door immediately. Instead, I looked inside through the crack in the door. I just happened to see the bed. I saw the beautiful proprietress lying on the bed with her back to me, covered with a summer quilt. Curled up. Tilde. Faintly, I seemed to hear the proprietress making such a soft nasal sound, which was very pleasant. But I didn't think much about it, because Mr. Chen told me on the phone that the boss's wife fell down at home. Now I see that it is true. The boss's wife must have fallen quite seriously. Otherwise, I wouldn't curl up in the quilt and hum. Worry leads to confusion. Ever since Mr. Chen asked me to seduce the boss lady yesterday afternoon, I have developed romantic feelings for her. Now seeing that she is in so much pain that she can't help but make sounds, how can I stay here any longer? So he immediately pushed the door open and went in, while anxiously asking, "Boss lady, are you okay?" Tilde. When the proprietress saw someone suddenly break in, she was so scared that her body trembled, then she suddenly pulled up the quilt to cover her body. She turned her head and saw me coming in, and immediately became angry and embarrassed. Lin Dong. The lady boss was extremely angry and scolded me harshly. "Who let you in? Don't you know how to knock? Get out right now." Boss, I was scolded by the boss lady, but I didn't want to leave because I saw her face was very red and her forehead was covered with sweat. The originally smooth hair looked a little messy due to being soaked with sweat. It was obvious that the boss lady was seriously injured. Only when the pain was severe would she sweat. I have served in the army, so I know this very well. But I also understand why the boss lady was so angry. She is a very conservative and dignified woman, and she saw the driver exercising his arms in her own bathroom in the middle of the night. How could she not be angry? If I were in his shoes, I would also think that I was a disgusting pervert. But the boss lady was obviously seriously injured, and I couldn't just leave because she scolded me, so I stayed and said to her regretfully, "Boss lady, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that last night. I'm really not a wretched person, can you believe me? You go out first." The lady boss didn't listen to what I said at all. She kept covering her chest with the summer quilt and stared at me warily and angrily. When she saw that I didn't leave, she held her chest with one hand and pretended to take out her phone with the other hand, threatening me, "If you don't leave, I'll call Chen Haifeng." I was also anxious when I heard that, and quickly said to the boss lady, "Boss lady, I know you hate me now, but I really can't leave now. Mr. Chen specifically asked me to come back and take you to the hospital, and you are sweating in pain now, you must be seriously injured. How can I ignore you at this time?" The lady boss was stunned for a moment when she heard this, then she remembered the phone call she had made to Chen Haifeng before. She turned her beautiful eyes and looked at me and asked, "Did Chen Haifeng ask you to come back?" "Right." I nodded honestly. "When I was in the car, Mr. Chen called me and said that you fell at home and asked me to come back and take you to the hospital for a checkup." As soon as I finished speaking, I immediately looked at the boss lady with concern and asked, "Boss lady, where did you fall? Does it hurt now? Can you move?" While I was talking, the proprietress's beautiful eyes had been observing me. Suddenly, instead of answering, she asked, "What did you see outside the door just now?" "I didn't see anything. I just saw you, Madam Boss, curled up like you were in a lot of pain. Then when I came in, I saw you sweating profusely from the pain." I found it a bit strange when the boss lady asked this. After hearing what I said, the lady boss's face, which was already red, became even redder, as if it was about to bleed. Then she sighed and said, "I accidentally broke my ankle while mopping the floor. It hurts. Can she walk?" I immediately asked with concern, because as long as the boss's wife could walk, it meant that her bones were not injured, it was just an ordinary soft tissue contusion. However, after asking this question, I felt a little stupid. If the boss's wife couldn't walk, she wouldn't have gone back to the bedroom to lie on the bed. Sure enough, after I asked, the lady boss nodded and said, "He can walk. It's probably just a sprain. It just hurts so much right now." As soon as the boss lady finished speaking, she stretched out her right foot from the quilt with a look of pain on her face. Although the boss lady was injured and I shouldn't think too much about it, her feet are really beautiful. The small part of the calf that goes up is also snow white and slender. It can also be seen that the proprietress is now wearing a skirt because no trouser legs are exposed. This makes people think a lot. Looking at the boss lady's slender calves, I remembered her charming voice last night, which was like an oriole. Then I suggested with a guilty conscience, "Boss lady, I learned massage in the army. The most important thing for sprains is to activate blood circulation and remove blood stasis. Otherwise, it will hurt more in a few days. Do you want me to give you a massage first?" After saying this, I kept my head down and didn't dare to look up at the boss lady because I felt extremely guilty and nervous. Not only was my heart beating very fast, but my palms were also full of sweat. The proprietress had a beautiful face. Her pretty eyes stared at my face for a while. When she saw that I was sweating from nervousness, she couldn't help but find it funny. I really looked like an innocent little boy. I just don't know why he, who looks so sunny and handsome, had to hide in the bathroom last night and do something so difficult and unspeakable. Thinking of the scene she saw at the bathroom door last night, the proprietress blushed again, then nodded and said to me, "Well, you try it." "Good." I was overjoyed to hear that. Then, just as I reached the bedside and squatted down to pick up the boss lady's ankle for examination, she suddenly retracted her foot, her face flushed, and said to me embarrassedly, "You can only touch my feet, don't touch anything else, understand?" Chapter 15 Massage for the Boss Lady. Look at the proprietress's slender white ankles and slender calves. A lot of restless thoughts suddenly surged in my mind, but I didn't dare to implement any of them. I could only hold the boss's lady ankles and knead them gently. However, due to excessive tension, I sweated a lot. "Your palms are sweating a lot." The proprietress leaned against the head of the bed, with the summer quilt just covering her chest. She looked at me and asked, "Are you hot?" I was startled when I heard that, then I looked up at the beautiful and dignified proprietress, then immediately lowered my head, too embarrassed to look at her again, and then said guiltily, "Oh, it's a little hot." "Then I'll turn on the air conditioner. The boss's room is on the east side and is well ventilated. The second floor is actually not that hot, but when the boss's wife saw that I was hot, she took the remote control and turned on the air conditioner. Soon I felt a cool breeze coming from behind. But I was secretly complaining in my heart. The heat in the body can be solved by turning on the air conditioner, but how do you solve the heat in your heart? Feeling the smooth skin of the boss lady's calf with my hands, I had 1,010,000 desires to massage her calf all the way up, as if a devil was constantly encouraging me to do so. Does it still hurt? I massaged the boss lady's ankle for a while, then looked up and asked tentatively, because I found that her ankle was not swollen, so she probably didn't fall very seriously, which was why she was sweating in pain just now. It may be because women cannot tolerate pain and are spoiled, so they cannot bear even the slightest pain. The lady boss looked at me, nodded, and said with a smile, "Much better, thank you. I didn't expect you could give massages. When I was in the army, sprains and falls were common, so I learned this skill." I was so happy when I saw the boss lady smiling at me, and then my eyes fell on her calves involuntarily. My heart was beating fast and I said nervously, "Actually, I'm good at massage. Do you want to try it, boss lady?" The boss lady had a dignified temperament. She leaned against the headboard and looked at me without saying a word after I finished speaking. I thought the boss lady saw through my thoughts and quickly explained guiltily, "It's just an ordinary massage, nothing else, boss lady, please don't misunderstand me." I didn't say anything. The boss lady looked at me strangely and asked, "What do you think I misunderstood about you?" After the boss lady finished speaking, I suddenly felt a lot of pressure. Lies may fool others but not myself. It is true that I can massage, but actually I just want to touch the boss lady's body through massage. And when you press the front, you can also see the boss lady's breasts. Even though there was clothing in between, the shape was still visible. Last night, I didn't see the front of the boss lady, which made me feel very regretful. Until now, I have been possessed by a demon and want to see her very much. The boss lady's question with a double meaning left me with no way to explain. At the last moment, I lowered my head and said with shame, "Because I'm afraid that the boss lady will misunderstand me because of what happened last night. I noticed that you were very distant to me in the morning, and then I felt uncomfortable all day at the company. Actually, boss lady, I'm really not that kind of person. I just. Having said that, I pretended to be anxious and couldn't continue. The whole paragraph is half true and half false. This lying technique was taught to me by Mr. Chen. Mixing the truth with lies will make you appear more credible. When the proprietress heard me mention what happened last night, her beautiful face flushed and she looked at me. Originally, out of shame as a woman, she was embarrassed to ask about this, but her curiosity made her want to ask something. So she looked at me with her beautiful eyes, like a curious cat, and asked curiously, "Just what?" I just couldn't help it. How could I dare to tell the truth? If I told the boss lady that I had secretly seen her and Mr. Chen in the same room last night and couldn't help myself, and that the object of my fantasy was also her, she would immediately turn hostile and kick me out. The lady boss rolled her eyes upon hearing this. She originally thought that I would give a reason, but it turned out to be useless. I just saw the lady boss roll her eyes. The charm in her beautiful eyes was simply stunning, like a pot of peach blossom wine, mellow and fragrant, which made me drunk without even knowing it. The proprietress noticed my look and her cheeks turned red again. Then she glared at me with a stern face and said, "Don't look." I wanted to look even more, because the proprietress's eyes were so harmless, and her face was red, a bit like a ripe peach, which made people want to take a bite. I guess you can squeeze out the juice with one bite. But I was afraid of angering the boss lady, so I shifted my attention back to her slender, white calves. Seeing this, the boss lady's shame subsided a little, and she continued the previous topic awkwardly, "Even if you couldn't help it, you can't hide in my bathroom like that, and don't you have a bathroom in your room? Why do you have to go to the bathroom outside?" I subconsciously answered, "I'm afraid that you, the boss lady, will hear me if my phone is on." When the boss lady heard this, she immediately thought of her husband's sex last night, so she looked at me nervously and said, "You didn't hear anything last night, did you?" No, I didn't hear anything." While I was denying it, I secretly cursed myself for being so careless and almost letting the cat out of the bag. Upon hearing this, the proprietress secretly breathed a sigh of relief and thought to herself, if I had heard the screams she couldn't help but make last night, she would have really lost face in her life. It's so embarrassing. However, when she thought of this, the proprietress looked up and glanced at me, and suddenly a thought popped up in her mind that scared her. What if I really heard those involuntary shy sounds of hers? Could it be that I went to the bathroom to do those obscene things because I heard her voice? Thinking of this, the lady boss was upset, as if a little deer had taken up residence in her heart and was constantly running around. However, she was too shy to confront me directly, so she warned me again, Xiaolin, you are still young. Don't do that kind of thing all the time. It's very harmful to your health, you know. I had no idea that the boss lady had already noticed something. I just felt that the boss lady's attitude towards me became much closer, so I became bolder, because the boss lady had always treated me as her own brother and was very good to me. So he plucked up the courage to whisper, but sometimes I can't help it. The proprietress asked in surprise, why can't you help it? Under what circumstances would you do something like using your hands? It's just that when I'm stimulated by something, like accidentally seeing some porn movies, I can't help but want to. I said honestly. The boss lady had known me for a long time and knew that I was not a bad person. She shook her head and said, watch less unhealthy movies in the future. If you don't watch those movies, you won't be stimulated. I nodded on the surface, but what I was actually thinking was that your husband was having sex with the vixen Ju Yaya in the car all day long without telling me. How could I not be turned on? What movie could be as exciting as the live action? But the landlady didn't know what I was thinking. Seeing that I was obedient, she nodded, then lay down again and said to me, didn't you just say you can give a massage? Give me a massage. Just as I finished speaking, the lady boss raised her body, looked at me with her beautiful eyes, and said threateningly, it's still the same as before. You are only allowed to massage, and you are not allowed to do anything else. Do you understand? I heard that. Still ecstatic. It feels like I am a devout believer of the boss lady. According to normal circumstances, I should have to kneel under the boss lady's skirt, look up to the boss lady, respect the boss lady, and make pilgrimage to the boss lady for the rest of my life. There was no chance for blasphemy. And now the boss lady has given me this opportunity, how can I not be ecstatic? When I took the boss lady's slender white calf again, my hands began to tremble uncontrollably. Chapter 16, No Wild Thoughts. On the large bed. The proprietress was lying on the bed, covered with a summer quilt. The quilt just covered her chest, hiding her chest, and also covered the area above her thighs. The two long legs now appear even whiter and longer. The proportions are good. There is no excess fat at all. The proprietress was also very nervous at this time. Her fair face was slightly flushed. She bit her lower lip slightly, and her hands instinctively grabbed the summer quilt. An indescribable strange feeling kept surging in her heart. Stimulate. Expect. Fear. There are all kinds of emotions. After a while, the boss lady Lin Mieshua finally couldn't stand this dull and ambiguous atmosphere anymore. She felt that time was particularly long. Seeing that I hadn't finished the massage for a long time, she rolled her eyes at me and said angrily, are you going to press it or not? Press it. Press it now. The boss lady was nervous, but I was actually more nervous than her. Seeing that she was angry, I quickly went forward to give her a massage, as most of her body was covered by the summer quilt. So I can only start from the legs. I couldn't help but swallow my saliva. The moment I touched the boss lady's beautiful legs, I felt the incomparable smoothness. At the same time, the boss lady suddenly trembled. What's wrong? I saw the proprietress tremble and asked. No, nothing, go on. The proprietress turned her head away with a flushed face, forcing herself not to move. When she felt a pair of hands gently wandering on her legs, an indescribable feeling instantly spread from her legs to her whole body. Then he shuddered reflexively. But she was embarrassed to let me see it, so she had to hold onto the quilt tightly and bite her lips. What the boss lady didn't know was that her appearance was killing me, especially the way she bit her lips with her pearly teeth, which was like a lit match slowly igniting me. So I started to make small talk, looking at the boss lady with a guilty conscience and suggesting, Boss lady, I can't massage you with the quilt covering you like this, why don't you take off the summer quilt and I'll give you a massage, okay? The proprietress bit her lip and didn't answer. Boss lady. Seeing that the proprietress didn't respond, I called out again. The proprietress seemed to be a little distracted just now. When she heard me calling her, she quickly came back to her senses and looked at me blankly. I didn't know what was going on, but the proprietress seemed to be a little hot and there was a lot of sweat on her forehead. I also felt hot, so I repeated what I had just said, do you want to take away the summer quilt so that I can give you a good massage? Otherwise, I won't be able to massage your waist and back. No. The proprietress decisively refused. all right. Seeing that the boss lady refused, I didn't dare to say anything. I just felt it was a pity. On the one hand, it was not very convenient to massage the boss lady because she was covered with a summer quilt. On the other hand, I couldn't see her figure well because she was covered with a quilt. Very depressed. Although compared to the past, being able to massage the boss's wife's legs is now an unattainable thing for me, but men are like this: after taking the first step, they will think about the next step. So how can I not be depressed? After massaging and kneading the boss lady's legs for a while, my attention was attracted by her thighs. Although she was covered with a quilt, the part above her thighs was full of temptation. Can't see it. But it makes one think. Then, as if possessed by some unknown force, I actually massaged my legs inside the quilt. At first, the landlady didn't notice and didn't say anything, but I was so excited that my heart almost jumped out of my throat. However, it was at this time the proprietress suddenly came to her senses, and as she put her legs together, she scolded me with a hint of shame and anger. "Lin Dong, where are you putting your hands?" "I didn't, I just massaged my legs, don't I need to massage my thighs?" I hurriedly explained. The proprietress looked at my face for a while, then snorted and said, "No need." But I was so depressed when I was rejected again, especially since I had just tasted the sweetness and was just this little bit away from the mysterious place of the boss lady. How could I not be depressed? No buts. The lady boss seemed to not want me to see her expression. She turned over and lay on her stomach for me to massage. "Just do it like before." Just after I finished speaking, the lady boss turned around with messy hair and warned me, "No touching." I was still unwilling to give in, so I bravely proposed again. "How about, lady boss, why don't you take off the quilt, and I'll go in and give you a massage through the quilt? Anyway, I can't see anything, and I promise not to touch you randomly, otherwise I'll be a dog." The proprietress hesitated for a moment and continued to refuse. "No." Why? I was so anxious that I almost cried. I had already massaged the boss lady's calves many times. It was an area I had already visited before. How could it still be attractive to me? No way. The lady boss snorted, and then seemed to notice my depression. She hesitated for a moment, blushed and said to me, "Xiao Lin, please stop imagining, okay? Give me a good massage. This is too much. Except for my husband, I have never let other men touch my body." At this point, the lady boss added, "Although we both have nothing to fear, and I know you gave me a massage because I was injured, but if others knew about this, wouldn't they want to know? And you know Chen Haifeng is a very stingy person. If he knew about it, who knows what he would think? You'd better not tell him about giving me a massage." But although I understood what the boss lady said, I still had the feeling of not being able to get what I wanted. There was even a moment when I wanted to impulsively tell the boss lady that Mr. Chen was not stingy and he even asked me to seduce you. But I didn't have the courage to say it. First of all, the boss lady wouldn't believe it. Secondly, even if the boss lady believed it and confronted Mr. Chen, he would not admit it. Instead, he would think that I had ruined his big plan and would ruthlessly ask me to pack up and leave. I clearly understood that the reason why Mr. Chen asked me to seduce the boss's wife was not to make me cheat on him, but he wanted to use the excuse of the boss's wife cheating on him so that he could divorce her peacefully. The lady boss didn't know what I was thinking. Seeing that I hadn't said anything for a long time, she thought I was angry. She had no choice but to look back at me and coax me, "Xiao Lin, please stop thinking about it. It's not okay." I really didn't. When I saw the boss's wife accusing me of overthinking again, I immediately explained away my grievance. Seeing that I didn't admit it, the lady boss looked down at me and said, "No, then what's wrong with you? Can't hold it back again." Chapter 17, Failure. I looked down subconsciously when I heard that. The top of the tent is very high. Then my face turned red instantly. I wanted to explain, but I didn't know how. After all, I did react. But fortunately, I found that the boss lady didn't seem angry. Instead, the blush on the proprietress's face became even brighter. It spreads to the earlobes and neck. Like a ripe red apple. Her eyes are shy and full of charm. I was mesmerized by the boss lady's shyness for a moment. I couldn't help swallowing my saliva, and then explained sincerely, "I don't want to, but, just." Having said that, I feel a little embarrassed to say it, mainly because I'm afraid that the boss's wife will be angry. The proprietress blushed and asked curiously, "Just what?" It's just that you are so beautiful, boss lady, so I reacted instinctively. I said while observing the boss lady's reaction, afraid that she would be angry. As expected, the lady boss rolled her eyes at me and said shyly, "You are so smooth talking. I don't know who you learned this from." No. I cried out that I was wronged, and then held the boss lady's ankles with a sacred feeling, looked at her longingly and said, "Boss lady, I am speaking from the bottom of my heart. Think about it, if you were not beautiful, how could I have a reaction? Who knows you?" The proprietress was embarrassed by my gaze. Her face was red as if blood was about to drip out. Her beautiful eyes flickered with shame. She didn't dare to look me in the eye. She snorted, glanced away and snorted, "I don't know who was hiding in the bathroom doing that obscene thing last night. Who were you thinking of at that time?" "Thinking about you, too." I couldn't help but blurt it out. I was thinking about the boss lady, my mind was full of her snow white and narrow back, and the shy and soft moans when I was in the same room with Mr. Chen. Until now, I still feel the boss lady's voice. The boss lady didn't believe it at all. "Nonsense, you didn't see me last night, how could you miss me?" I looked at the boss lady with a guilty conscience and didn't dare to speak. My forehead was sweating a lot because of the intense tension, and my heartbeat was also very fast. I wanted the boss lady to know that I saw her last night, but I was afraid that the boss lady would be angry if she really knew. The proprietress saw my evasive eyes, then thought of what I had just said, and immediately thought of a possibility that made her particularly shy. "Did you hear anything last night?" The proprietress's face turned even redder, and she looked at me with a pounding heart and asked, "What did you hear?" I didn't understand. I pretended not to understand, but actually I just wanted the boss lady to say it herself. But to my disappointment, the proprietress did not follow my plan. She snorted, lay down again, and said in a sulky tone, "It's nothing, just continue with the massage." Seeing that the boss lady was not fooled, I didn't dare to say anything. I had to obediently massage the boss lady again, from the ankles to the knees. However, soon, I looked at the boss lady's snow white and slender thighs and thought of another idea. So I looked at the boss lady's thighs, held my breath, and nervously used both hands to push up along her legs from the bottom. The reason was very simple, because this would make the boss lady feel like my hands were moving up her legs in steps. Above the knee is the inner thigh. Women are generally sensitive. Sure enough, as soon as I pushed her knees, the proprietress subconsciously closed her legs, and then asked me with a red face, "What are you doing? Didn't I tell you not to touch me?" "I didn't touch you randomly." I looked at the lady boss innocently and said, "Isn't that what I did just now, from the ankles to the knees?" "But you?" The proprietress looked at me and found herself unable to continue speaking. Although I pressed the same spot as before, I pressed one spot at a time instead of pushing up along the calf. This made her feel as if I was going to push along her legs all the way to the inside of her thighs in the next second. That's why she reflexively closed her legs. But if I ask her to say it directly, she is afraid that my hand will touch the inside of her thigh. How can she say it out loud? "Nothing, just keep pressing." The proprietress buried her face in her clothes and ignored me in a sulky manner, but she became even more nervous in her heart. Her heartbeat and breathing were all messed up. On the one hand, she wanted to stop this ambiguous relationship. On the one hand, I feel a little depressed. Because just now I pushed my hand up to the thigh from the knee, and the feeling at that moment was so strong. This was a strange feeling she had never experienced in more than 10 years of marriage. She even felt a little sticky down there. Thinking of this, Lin Mieshue became even more shy and pressed her legs closer together, thinking that this would prevent my hands from going to places that shouldn't be reached. It was just an ordinary massage anyway, so there was no need to make a fuss. I saw the boss lady continue to let me massage, so I continued. At the beginning, every time when my palm pushed to the knee position, I could feel the boss lady tremble, but unfortunately, the boss lady's legs were clamped tightly together and I couldn't push it in at all. But despite this, I was very excited. My body is covered with sweat. I don't know whether it's because I'm nervous or tired. But at this moment, I suddenly discovered that the proprietress's legs, which were originally tightly together, suddenly loosened a little. I immediately felt alert. After all, it is actually very tiring for a person to keep his legs tightly together. I stole a glance at the proprietress. I saw the boss lady lying on the bed, with no expression on her face. I held my breath, observing the boss lady, and became bolder. At first, I only pushed her a little bit up the knee and then stopped. It lasted for about a few minutes. I pushed it to the thigh again. At this time, I was extremely nervous and dared not even breathe loudly, for fear that the boss lady would suddenly stand up and call me a pervert and kick me out, which would then be a waste of time. "Madam Boss." I looked at the proprietress and called out tentatively. The proprietress responded to me, but her voice seemed a little strange and her breath a little disordered, which reminded me of the sound I heard last night. "The sound is very close. Is this kind of force okay? Does it hurt?" I asked cautiously. "Yes, sure Tilda." The boss lady replied to me with a slight breath. Her voice was so soft and seductive that I couldn't help myself. I felt that the boss lady's voice was so beautiful. I even felt that if I could just hear a voice like that from the boss lady every day in my life, I would be content. And it was at this time. I don't know if it was because my palms were sweating too much and therefore slippery, but my hand that was originally massaging the boss lady's thigh suddenly slipped, and then I accidentally massaged the inside of the boss lady's thigh into the quilt. Then continue. Then I touched a sense of indescribable smoothness through a layer of cloth. I was suddenly stunned. Chapter 18, Shame and Anger. Although I have never had a girlfriend. But I have been with Mr. Chen for 3 years and have been to many erotic places. What do men discuss most? Women. He has repeatedly told me what kind of women are the most beautiful. What kind of woman is the best? What are women like and how do they react when they are excited? So when I touched the slippery feeling under the boss lady's skirt, I was stunned for a moment, and then ecstatic, because this meant that the boss lady was not unconscious when I was giving her a massage just now. The boss lady wants it too. She was moved. Otherwise, how could her vagina be so smooth? I could even feel it through the fabric. But when I raised my head and looked at the proprietress in surprise, what I saw was a look of shame and anger on her face. I was immediately frightened by her angry expression. I was immediately reminded of the boss lady's distant and cold attitude in the morning. "Boss, I was so frightened that I was at a loss what to do." The proprietress was both embarrassed and annoyed, her mind full of thoughts like how dare he, how dare he. When she realized her private parts were touched, anger overwhelmed her mind. But when he saw me at a loss, he couldn't bear to get so angry. He just pointed at the door with a cold face and shouted angrily, "Get out." "Madam Boss, I was wrong. I really know I was wrong. I had never seen the boss lady so angry before." I was terrified and hurriedly explained, "I really didn't mean to touch you there. I just had too much sweat on my hands and they slipped accidentally." "How dare you say that?" Seeing that I dared to bring it up, the lady boss angrily interrupted me, then pointed outside the door, raised her voice, and shouted, "Get out. Get out now. I don't want to see you." I felt conflicted and scared. The pride I had felt when I realized the boss lady was also attracted by the emotions had long since disappeared. What was left was only fear. I was afraid that the boss lady would be angry and would kick me out. In fact, the biggest fear is that I will never see the boss lady again. Whenever I think of this, I feel as if I have fallen into an abyss, falling down, and my heart sinks with it. "You're not going out yet." The lady boss was furious when she saw me standing there, and she stood up and said, "Well, if you don't leave, I will." "No, no, no. I'm going out. I'm going out now." Upon seeing this, I quickly retreated to the door, and then I saw tears falling from the beautiful face of the boss lady. I felt guilty and distressed, and said regretfully, "Boss lady, please don't be angry, it's all my fault. I will never dare to do it again, I really won't dare." The proprietress became even angrier when she heard this. I was thinking angrily in my heart, I had already gone too far just now, do you dare to think about it next time? But the lady boss definitely wouldn't tell me these thoughts. Seeing that I was still standing at the door looking at her, she became more and more annoyed, so she continued, "Close the door for me." "Hey, Madam Boss." I sighed when I heard this. I was so excited just now, but now I was so sad. "Close the door." The proprietress repeated it again. I was afraid of making the boss lady angry again, so I had to close the door and then stood at the door and refused to leave. I felt mixed emotions and regretted my previous behavior very much. I felt like a beast. The boss lady is such a conservative woman. She allowed me to massage her, which meant she was very close to me. How could I shamelessly touch the private parts of the boss lady? Wasn't this a wretched man and a pervert? Lin Dong, Lin Dong. How can you be such a person? I kept regretting in my heart. In the room, I felt bad, and the boss lady Lin Mieshua felt bad too. After I closed the door, she got out of bed and locked the door. It was only after she got out of bed that her sexy outfit was exposed to the air. A black, slightly transparent silk nightgown. The spring light is exposed. This is also the reason why she kept hiding herself in the quilt when I was massaging her just now. Because she was wearing too cool and sexy clothes, she was embarrassed to open the quilt in front of me. That would be too embarrassing for her. In fact, she did not fall and was not injured. The reason she called Mr. Chen to tell him that she was injured was because she and Mr. Chen had slept together only a few times in the past 6 months. It is said that a woman's 30th birthday is her most beautiful time. Lin Mieshua is such a person. At the age of early 30s, Lin Mieshua is not only beautiful, but also like a ripe red apple, breathtakingly beautiful. At the same time, physiologically, she is different from before. Now she wants it. It's a pity that my husband Chen Haifeng has been too busy in the past 6 months. Originally, Lin Mieshua was used to it and could endure the loneliness of being alone in an empty room, but her husband Chen Haifeng came back to see her last night, and when she was about to reach the top of the cloud, Mr. Chen surrendered. She was thrown in mid-air, unable to go up or down, feeling quite uncomfortable. Then, because of her dignified, conservative and shy personality, she was too embarrassed to tell her husband that she was not satisfied, so she had to wait until her husband fell asleep, and then she wanted to sneak to the bathroom outside to satisfy her needs. But what I never expected was that the moment she opened the bathroom door, she saw me doing such a shameful thing. Because women are naturally shy. Lin Mieshua instinctively got angry and turned away. Even though I explained to her again and again, she was still very angry that I actually did such a vulgar thing in her home. But when she returned to her room, she couldn't sleep. When she opened the bathroom door before, she actually saw all the scenes. She tossed and turned in bed for a long time, unable to fall asleep. The only thing on her mind was that Xiaolin's thing was so big, and it looked good, unlike her husband's, which was a bit ugly. But soon, shame and anger filled Lin Mieshua's mind again. After all, Lin Mieshua is a shy and conservative woman. She is usually very dignified in front of outsiders, especially in front of strange men. She keeps her distance and will not give anyone the opportunity to be ambiguous. But now she inexplicably thought that her husband's driver's thing was very big. When she realized this, how could she not feel shy and annoyed? She also felt very guilty, blaming herself for not being a faithful wife and thinking about another man in the middle of the night. The key point was that this man was not only her husband's driver, but also 10 years younger than her. So when Lin Mieshua woke up the next day, feeling dissatisfied, annoyed, self-blame and other emotions, she deliberately kept a distance from me and didn't give me a good look. But when Mr. Chen and I left and she was alone at home, emptiness attacked her again. This made her want it but also blame herself, but sometimes she couldn't help but think of the scene she saw at the bathroom door last night. It was almost noon when Lin Mieshua thought of her husband. She felt that the reason she kept thinking about the scene of last night was because her husband did not satisfy her. Once my husband satisfies me, I will no longer think about what I saw last night. So she deliberately picked out a sexy black transparent nightgown, and then called her husband Chen Haifeng, saying that she had fallen and wanted him to come back to accompany her. But what she never expected was that Mr. Chen did not come back, but sent me back instead. She was even almost caught on the spot when she was doing it with her hands in Xie Liang's quilt. How can it be explained by embarrassment and guilty conscience? Thinking of everything that happened last night, Lin Mieshua irritably collapsed on the bed, her cheeks red as if they were about to bleed. She thought to herself in self-blame, Lin Mieshua, how did you become such a wanton woman? You used to tease your best friend Xiao Jinyu, saying that she couldn't walk when she saw a handsome guy. How come you are like that now? You know that men think with their lower body, but you dared to let him give you a massage. Oh. It's so annoying. Lin Mieshua was in tears. Just at this moment, the sound of a WeChat video call on her mobile phone rang, and Lin Mieshua raised her head guiltily. Chapter 19 Xiao Jinyu. I stood at the door of the boss's bedroom for a while, then went back to the car. The reason I didn't go back to the next room was because I knew the boss's wife must be very angry. So I stayed away. But even when I got back to the car, I felt extremely regretful in my heart. I regretted that I was too impatient. If I wasn't so impatient, maybe I could have given the boss's wife a massage next time. And the boss lady also responded. As I get used to it slowly, maybe the boss lady will agree to let me take the next step. Now, because of his greed, he completely offended the boss's wife and was kicked out. However, the proprietress also has the sensitive physique that Mr. Chen mentioned. I just massaged her legs for a while and didn't touch anywhere else. It was surprisingly smooth there, and I could feel it through the fabric. What would the scenery be like inside if there was no fabric? No, I can't think about it anymore. I quickly shook my head, trying to get the previous scene out of my mind. It was okay when I regretted it before, but now when I thought about the slippery private parts of the boss lady, I felt very uncomfortable again. After thinking about it, I found the boss's WeChat. The boss lady's WeChat name is Shili Chun Phone. I thought about it for a while and sent a WeChat message to the boss's wife. Boss's wife, please don't be angry, okay? I will never dare to do it again next time. I really didn't mean it, and I regret it now. The message was sent out quickly. But as expected, the boss lady did not reply to the message. Second floor bedroom. When Lin Mieshua heard the voice of the WeChat video call, she felt nervous and guilty. She thought it was her husband Chen Haifeng calling to ask her about her injury. It turned out that the person who made the video call was not Chen Haifeng, but her best friend Xiao Jinyu. Lin Mieshua has two best friends who she has known for more than 10 years and they have always had a good relationship. One is called Li Qingmai, who lives in Binhai, and the other is called Xiao Jinyu, who lives in Shanghai. Li Qingmai is an iceberg beauty with serious cleanliness in life and mind. She is cold, aloof and arrogant. In her world, men are animals with dirty minds. Looking for a man is a kind of self-defilement for her. As for Xiao Jinyu, it is the exact opposite. Xiao Jinyu is a typical southern woman, gentle as water, and every move she makes can show the soft and charming charm of a southern woman, which is particularly lethal to men. This is different from Li Qingmai's dislike for men. Xiao Jinyu thinks that women are born to show their unique charm in front of men, so that men can please and nourish them. Otherwise, how can those men find their own masculine value? Because of this, Li Qingmai often quarreled with Xiao Jinyu. But Xiao Jinyu always remained unchanged in the face of all changes, with a coquettish smile on her face, and she would bicker with Li Qingmai in a laughing manner. The more Li Qingmai rejected men, the more Xiao Jinyu would describe the good things about men in front of Li Qingmai. If it weren't for the dignified and calm Lin Mieshua who always mediates between the besties gatherings, these two women, one hot-tempered and the other cold-blooded, would have definitely fought. Lin Mieshua was in a rather confused mood, and when she saw it was Xiao Jinyu's video, she did not answer it. However, Xiao Jinyu called soon. Lin Mieshua knew Xiao Jinyu's personality. She was like a graceful Persian cat, clingy. If she didn't answer the phone, she would definitely call again. So I answered the phone. My dear sister Mieshua, why don't you answer my video? Are you doing something bad behind your sister's back? As soon as the call was connected, Xiao Jinyu's soft and charming laughter came out of the phone. What can I do to feel guilty? Lin Mieshua had no good way to deal with Xiao Jinyu, her best friend who always spoke without restraint, so she replied with a smile. Xiao Jinyu smiled charmingly and said, "That's not necessarily true. Now that the times have progressed, people's minds have become more open and liberated, and it's fashionable to flirt in broad daylight. Who knows if you've done anything shameful with your spouse behind my back? Otherwise, why don't you answer my video?" When Lin Mieshua heard this, she thought of the ambiguous scene when I massaged her before, and subconsciously blushed and retorted, "Don't talk nonsense, how could it be possible? My husband went to the company early in the morning. If you keep talking nonsense like this, I will be angry." Are you angry? Xiao Jinyu suddenly grasped the point, and then said to himself, No, there must be a problem. My dear Miss Mieshua has a dignified and quiet personality. Generally speaking, she will not be anxious because of one or two words. Lin Mieshua was choked by Xiao Jinyu's sudden attack, and she couldn't emphasize with a guilty conscience, "There is really no problem." I don't believe it. Xiao Jinyu snorted, then changed the subject and revealed a charming and triumphant smile, "Unless you accept my video call now." Okay. Lin Mieshua paid attention to the outside and saw that there was no movement outside. Then she hung up the phone and dialed Xiao Jinyu's video call. Soon, the video was connected, and a woman with skin as white as snow and charming appearance appeared. This woman was none other than one of Lin Mieshua's best friends, Xiao Jinyu. Lin Mieshua was helpless with this best friend. She took a photo of the empty surroundings with her phone camera, and then said helplessly, "Fox spirit, see, I'm the only one in the room." No, no. Xiao Jinyu's eyes were lively, and she smiled coquettishly. She turned her head, then stared at Lin Mieshua in the video and said, "Why is your hair so messy?" R. Hearing this, Lin Mieshua touched her hair reflexively. Then, fearing that the coquettish Xiao Jinyu might notice something, she immediately explained, "I was taking a nap just now. Is it normal for my hair to be messy?" Yeah. Xiao Jinyu looked at Lin Mieshua with a smile, his eyes full of intelligence, as if he wanted to see into Lin Mieshua's heart. Lin Mieshua herself was not good at lying, and could not stand Xiao Jinyu's fiery gaze. She subconsciously dodged his gaze and replied guiltily, "Of course, it's hot today, and I didn't turn on the air conditioner before I went to bed." Yeah, that's right. The weather is a bit hot today. I'm almost melting in Shanghai. If I wasn't afraid of being jealous and called a vixen when I go out, I would have wanted to go out without clothes to keep cool at night. Xiao Jinyu spoke boldly and unrestrainedly, echoing Lin Mieshua. Just as Lin Mieshua heaved a sigh of relief and thought she had finally gotten away with it, Xiao Jinyu suddenly revealed a sly smile, his eyes filled with a narrow smile. "But I still don't believe you haven't done anything wrong, unless you let me see your little sister and see if she drools. If not, then I'll believe it. Get lost. I'm dead." When Lin Mieshua heard this, her face turned red instantly, her guilty heart beat wildly, and she was so embarrassed and annoyed that she wanted to hang up the video. When Xiao Jinyu saw that Lin Mieshua was about to hang up the video, she quickly put away her foxy smile and stopped joking, shouting, "No, no, no, don't hang up. I was wrong. I'm not kidding you anymore." After hearing this, Lin Mieshua gave up the idea of hanging up the video. But the scene of me standing at the door, at a loss, kept coming to her mind. At that time, I kept saying that I was wrong, just like what her best friend Xiao Jinyu said. Immediately following, Lin Mieshua reduced the video dialog box, and then saw the WeChat message I sent her. Sure enough, it was still saying things like he was wrong and would never dare to do it again next time. Do you think it's okay to apologize for just one or two sentences? You are really too bold. Hateful. Lin Mieshua puffed up her lips in anger. How dare he touch her private parts? Apart from her husband, she had never let other men touch her private parts. Chapter 20, It's enough for a man to be handsome, Sister Chen has. Shanghai Stock Exchange. In a luxuriously decorated garden villa, Xiao Jinyu, who was wearing yoga clothes and had an extremely hot body, saw Lin Mieshua distracted in the video, blushing, and asked curiously, "Mieshua, what are you thinking about?" You didn't think about anything." When Lin Mieshua heard Xiao Jinyu's voice, she came back to her senses immediately, but her face became even redder. Xiao Jinyu had just finished practicing yoga. She untied her bun, letting her hair fall down like a waterfall, looking very feminine. She was observant and felt that her best friend was acting abnormally today. However, because he was afraid that Lin Mieshua would be angry, he stopped digging into the matter and got down to business. "My dear, I'm tired of staying in Shanghai. I'll go to Binhai to spend a few days with you and the Ice Beauty. Come over here, will your wife agree? Xiao Jinyu has a man. Her man is a powerful figure in Shanghai and has a strong desire for control. Xiao Jinyu is a playful person. Every time Xiao Jinyu comes to Binhai, her man will check on her and urge her to return to Shanghai many times." So Lin Mieshua said jokingly. Xiao Jinyu said nonchalantly, "Don't worry about him. He can't control me. If I want to be a canary in Shanghai, I might as well die immediately. I want to go out and have fun, and pick up handsome guys. When the time comes, you can introduce a handsome guy to me." "Where can I introduce you to a handsome guy?" Lin Mieshua smiled when she heard this. Xiao Jinyu said with a charming smile, "The driver named Lin Dong who drives your husband is very good. He was a soldier and has a strong body. The old man urged me too much last time, so I didn't have time to meet the handsome boy. This time, you can help me match them up." When Lin Mieshua heard my name, she subconsciously retorted, "What's so good about him? So handsome. Can being handsome be used to make a living? When will you change your obsessive love for women? You're strong, too." Xiao Jinyu smiled brightly, Isn't it enough for a man to be handsome and have a good figure? Otherwise, why would I want him? Am I after his money? As for money, I don't lack that, I just lack young handsome men. I don't know why, but when Lin Mieshua heard Xiao Jinyu keep mentioning me, she felt a little uncomfortable, so she said, forget it. He hasn't had a girlfriend yet. Don't bother him. He's not suitable for you. The foxy Xiao Jinyu's eyes lit up when she heard this, so, he is still a virgin. Then I have to prepare a big red envelope for him this time. Lin Mieshua didn't know how to respond after listening to her best friend's words. After thinking about it, she finally felt that the problem was with me. If I hadn't picked up Xiao Jinyu at the airport and asked him about his well-being along the way, why would Xiao Jinyu have targeted me? Thinking of this, Lin Mieshua reduced the video frame again, and then sulked and found my WeChat chat box. Go away, all men are bad. Stop messaging me. Drop. As soon as I opened WeChat, I saw the message the boss lady sent me. It was very irritating. She actually told me to get out. Yes, I like the boss lady very much, but I also have my dignity. As the saying goes, the more you love someone, the more you care about his or her attitude. Although I knew it was my fault for what happened before, I couldn't help feeling uncomfortable when I saw the boss lady speak so heartlessly. 2. How could the boss lady, a woman from the upper class who was born with a silver spoon in her mouth, be interested in a nobody like me who only earns 5,000 yuan a month? Driven by my man's self-esteem, I deleted the glaring WeChat message from the boss's wife, calmed down for a while, and found the WeChat avatar of my high school classmate Li Yang again. Because I won't feel inferior in front of Li Yang. And Li Yang is also very beautiful. Although she is not as pretty and dignified as the boss lady, Li Yang's quiet temperament has 50% of the boss lady's charm. However, although I found Li Yang's WeChat avatar, I did not send her a message immediately because I had sent a message to Li Yang before and she had not replied to me yet. This makes me a little irritated. I was already frustrated with the boss's wife. I was rejected and told to get out. I was also told that I was not a good person. As a result, Li Yang did not reply to my message. If I send her a second message now, I will feel like a dog licker. But what turned my anger into joy was that just when I was feeling upset and hesitant, Li Yang actually replied to my message. I'm sorry, I wasn't allowed to use my phone at work before, but now I can only use my phone during mealtimes. Li Yang explained. It can be said that Li Yang's reply at this time was equivalent to saving me from falling off a cliff, because when anyone is being neglected, a little kindness from anyone will bring him a warm feeling. I was no exception. So I immediately replied, it's okay, I was busy before. Then he asked, what kind of work are you doing now? Why are you so busy? Clothing. I suddenly understood what he said. Because the economic conditions in our hometown in Jiangxi province are relatively backward, the educational teaching staff is also relatively weak. Among my peers, few were admitted to university. Most of them dropped out of junior high school or high school and went out to work. There are several options left for boys who drop out of school, including learning to repair cars, learning CNC lathes, and working in a factory. As for the girls who dropped out of school, they usually either go to work in electronics factories or go to some private factories in the south to make clothes. The clothing industry generally pays by piecework, and the more you work, the more you earn. They are very busy and have no time to play with their mobile phones. When I think about Li Yang, whom I had a crush on and loved deeply, now working in the clothing industry, a tiring and unprofitable job, I can't help but feel a lot of emotion. Li Yang has a quiet personality. She is a lady from a wealthy family, delicate and able to endure loneliness. She is also a very suitable woman to marry home. I also thought about pursuing Li Yang as my wife in high school. It's a pity that Li Yang rejected him. What's even more regrettable is that when I was discharged from the army, I found out that Li Yang had married a man who I heard was very ordinary. When I first heard the news, I got drunk and found Li Yang on QQ and cried to her, telling her how much I admired her in school and why I couldn't understand why she rejected my pursuit and ended up marrying an ordinary man through a blind date. What? I'm much better than her current husband, right? After listening to my crying, Li Yang was silent for a long time, and then replied to me, you were too young at the time and had no idea of falling in love. By the time you woke up, everything had changed. Yes, things have changed and people have changed. I often think like this in my heart, but there is nothing I can do. The matter is done. It is a fact that Li Yang is marrying someone else, and it is destined to become a regret in my heart. Chatted with Li Yang for a while. Li Yang quickly told me that it was time for her lunch break and she had to go to work. I read the chat records with Li Yang again, and I could feel that she was not happy. Thinking of her bright and beautiful appearance in school, I slowly tightened the steering wheel of the Mercedes-Benz E300. Suddenly, a strong and mediocre ambition surged in my heart. I want to succeed. Just like Mr. Chen, who is successful, only in this way can he take care of the woman he wants to take care of. Chapter 21. You said she was too charming. Money is a man's courage. If you have money, you can do a lot of things you want to do. For example, Mr. Chen, if Mr. Chen had no money, would Zhu Yeye, a vixen, throw herself at him? Needless to say, with Zhu Yeye's shrewdness, she would definitely not do such a stupid thing. In that case, she might throw herself into my arms. Thinking about what Zhu Yeye said in the company this morning that she liked me, I couldn't help but feel warm in my heart. Although I looked down on Zhu Yeye's personality, I also admitted her charm. Just like a goblin. In fact, many times, I hated her so much, but wasn't it because I was jealous that she took the initiative to serve Mr. Chen instead of me? If Zhu Yeye had pursued me at the beginning, I would never hate her. Instead, I would have taken her back home with a sense of accomplishment, and then boasted to everyone how beautiful I had found a girlfriend, and she was a college student. But soon, my fantasies stopped. I clearly realized that even if Mr. Chen had no money, Zhu Yeye would not give it to me, but would go find another rich man. What a powerful and slutty woman. And just at this time, Mr. Chen called. Is my wife seriously injured? Has she gone to the hospital for an X-ray? Mr. Chen asked on the phone. When Mr. Chen asked me this, I remembered that the boss's wife had sprained her ankle. But after thinking about it, I said to Mr. Chen, the boss's wife's injury was not serious. She didn't go to the hospital. Mr. Chen asked, where are you now? In the car. I replied subconsciously. Upon hearing this, Mr. Chen frowned and said, you're not with my wife. No, the boss lady is resting in the bedroom. I heard the dissatisfaction in Mr. Chen's tone, but it was a bit puzzled. Why would I be with the boss lady? Even if I didn't offend the boss lady, I shouldn't be with her. Mr. Chen became even angrier when he heard this, and asked with displeasure, do you remember what I said to you yesterday afternoon in the company? I suddenly remembered that Mr. Chen asked me to seduce the boss's wife, but a lot of things changed too quickly in the past 2 days, causing my thoughts to be too confused, and I ignored this matter. Then I said in embarrassment, Mr. Chen, I'm just a driver. How could the boss's wife be interested in me? I really can't do this. As I said this, I processed my words and said with a hint of grievance, let alone seducing the boss's wife, she wouldn't let me stay at home, so I stayed in the sports car. Mr. Chen also knew that his wife had a more dignified personality and was very careful about maintaining boundaries with men. It would be harder than climbing to the sky to get her to cheat. When he heard me say this, his unhappiness subsided a lot. But in Mr. Chen's opinion, I am the one with the best chance. Because if a man wants to develop feelings with a woman, the first condition is that the woman doesn't hate you. If she hates you when she sees you and won't say a word to you, how can you seduce her to make a mistake? Hey, Xiaolin, I'm not saying anything bad about you, but sometimes you're just too honest. Haven't you heard that if a man isn't bad, a woman won't love him? Sometimes you need to be a little bolder. Scale, do you understand scale? You have to slowly test my wife's limits. For example, if you like her and she scolds you, you can pretend to be pitiful and say that she is too beautiful and you can't control yourself. Women all like to hear sweet words, you know. If my wife is not angry, you can boldly touch her and say it, or just kiss her directly on the mouth, preferably with your tongue. Since Zhu Yeye was pregnant with a son, Mr. Chen was even more anxious about the divorce, so he began to teach me a lesson. Yes, the tongue must be inserted, because for women, there are 2 ways to quickly leave a deep impression on them, and that is their upper and lower mouths. You are definitely hopeless for the time being regarding the mouth below. But you can try the one above. You are a soldier, you're not going to tell me that you can't even handle a woman, are you? Then, Mr. Chen said to me in an impatient tone, Lin Dorn, I'm going to Yeye's hometown with her later. I won't be home for a week. You'd better get my wife within this week, okay? I've told you what I should say. When you go in later, find an opportunity to kiss my wife. Won't the boss lady tear me to pieces then? I was terrified when I heard this and couldn't help but ask back. Mr. Chen scolded, "Are you a pig?" Which woman would have the nerve to speak out if she was taken advantage of? Is it necessary to call the police for a kiss? As for telling me, she would be even less willing to tell me. What should she say? Did she say, "Husband, your driver kissed me"? She didn't dare let me know. She probably kept it in her heart, and then you took the opportunity to act pitiful in front of her, even kneeling down. As I said, just say she was too charming and you really couldn't control yourself. Blame it on her being too charming. I was a little skeptical about what Mr. Chen said before, but after hearing what I said now, I was convinced by him. He is indeed a veteran in the world of women. I even suspect that this is how Mr. Chen pursued the boss's wife. Otherwise, how could the boss's wife, such a beautiful and proud woman, be interested in Mr. Chen, who was a contractor at the time? The more I think about it, the more likely it seems. So I was encouraged again. After hanging up the phone, I immediately entered the villa with full energy. But just when I was about to go upstairs, I stopped again. I accidentally touched the private parts of the boss's wife before. Now the boss's wife must be very angry. If I go up now, the boss's wife will definitely scold me. So I thought about it and decided to prepare lunch first. It's noon now and the boss's wife hasn't eaten yet. I will wait until the meal is ready and then go find the boss's wife under the pretext of asking her to come down to eat. Do what you say. I went to the kitchen. Since I was born in the countryside, I had good cooking skills and was quite good at making meals. Then I quickly made 2 dishes, one of which was pork ribs stewed with winter melon. A dry pot shrimp. After cooking the food, I plucked up the courage to go upstairs again and came to the door of the boss's wife's bedroom. I could faintly hear her voice from inside, and it seemed like she was having a video call with a woman. "Boss lady, I made lunch, please come out and eat," I said through the door. Inside the room, Lin Mieshue was still video chatting with her best friend Xiao Jinyu. When she heard my voice, the first thing she wanted to do was to scold me away. However, because she was video chatting with Xiao Jinyu, she was afraid that Xiao Jinyu would notice something wrong, so she didn't hear my voice at that time. I had no idea what the landlady was thinking through the door, and when she didn't answer, I knocked on the door again. Lin Mieshue didn't want to pay attention to me at first, but Xiao Jinyu also heard the knock on the door, so she asked Lin Mieshue, "Someone is knocking on the door outside, why don't you go open the door?" Is that so? I didn't notice. Maybe he was asking me to have dinner. I'll hang up now. We'll talk next time. Lin Mieshue pretended not to notice what was said, and hung up the phone. Then she got out of bed angrily, walked to the door, opened it, and glared at me. "Are you done yet?" The proprietress was very angry. I saw that you didn't eat, so I came up to call you to eat." Seeing the boss lady's angry look, I was so scared that I didn't dare to speak loudly. I said something timidly, but my attention was soon diverted and I couldn't help but look at the boss lady's chest. When I was giving the boss lady a massage in the room before, I didn't see the nightgown she was wearing. But now I see it. The black silk is hollowed out in many places, especially the upper part of the chest, which is extremely transparent. You can vaguely see 2 snow-white, round balls, like an upside-down bowl. The boss lady has nice, big breasts. This was the only thought in my mind at that moment. Chapter 22. Do you want to buy something? I have also watched quite a few short films on my phone. Among them, Teacher Kang has quite big breasts. But I didn't expect that the proprietress's was not inferior at all. Although not as big as Teacher Kang's, it had a better shape and was especially white and smooth as mutton fat jade. But I was also smart. I only took a quick glance, and immediately looked away the second before the boss lady got angry. How smart is Lin Mieshue? She also noticed that I was looking at her breasts, but she was more embarrassed and annoyed. She was annoyed that I, at such a young age, would always think about some lewd things. But there wasn't much anger. I thought to myself, maybe it's because I'm too young and have never seen a woman that I think so much about women. It will be better when he finds a girlfriend in the future. When Lin Mieshue saw that I looked away, she didn't want to argue with me anymore. She snorted at me, then took a coat to cover her chest, and prepared to go downstairs to eat. But the boss lady is really beautiful. Even though she was wearing a coat, she was still very charming. The coat not only did not cover her beauty, but instead added a touch of heroic beauty to her. Moreover, she was tall. The two round and beautiful legs under the coat looked particularly slender and sexy. At this time, I suddenly remembered and looked at the boss lady and asked, "By the way, boss lady, does your ankle still hurt? Can you walk?" When Lin Mieshua heard this, a faint blush appeared on her face. She was not injured at all. The reason she said she was injured was that she just wanted her husband to come back and be with her. She didn't expect that she would shoot herself in the foot. Not only did her husband not come back, but she was also shamefully taken advantage of. Although Lin Mieshua had calmed down a lot, she was still very shy when she thought about the electric shock she felt when she was touched down there before. One reason was that the feeling at that moment was very strange and exciting, and the other reason was that I was her husband's driver. A woman's private parts are private and cannot be touched by any man except her husband. The most important thing is that she was touched when she was very aroused and slippery, which made her very embarrassed. She was afraid that I would think she was a very promiscuous woman. This was also the main reason why she was filled with shame and anger before, and got so angry. She had to take the initiative and accuse me of being a pervert first. When Lin Mieshua heard me mention my ankle injury, she thought for a while, then a hint of pain flashed across her brows, and then she blushed and whispered to me, "It still hurts a little, but not as much as before. Help me up." Lin Mieshua said to me shyly, "Okay, I'll help you." I was overjoyed when I heard that, and immediately came up excitedly to hold the boss lady's arm. I felt like I had fallen off a cliff and was pulled back by the boss lady. I felt that the boss lady was the best woman in the world. If it were any other woman, she would never have forgiven me for being so bold. But the boss lady forgave me. If the boss lady is not the most beautiful, gentle and best woman in the world, then who is? Lin Mieshua was supported by me as she limped towards the door. Her gentle face became more and more flushed. Others didn't know it, but she knew that she was pretending to have sprained her ankle. I have to admit, it's really difficult to pretend to be injured and walk. When I was walking down the hallway, Lin Mieshua saw me stop. She was startled and looked at me warily and asked, What are you stopping for?" I immediately saw the wariness in the boss lady's eyes, and then quickly looked down the stairs and explained, "Boss lady, you sprained your foot, and you can't put any force on your foot when going downstairs, so I was wondering if you would like me to carry you downstairs." As soon as I finished speaking, I immediately added to the lady boss, "Don't think too much, I really just carried you downstairs on my back, I promise not to do anything wrong." Lin Mieshua looked at me explaining anxiously, and the nervousness in her heart suddenly dissipated a lot. She even wanted to laugh, but she held it back and instead looked at me with suspicion and asked, Really, if you mess around again, I'll chop off my hand." Seeing that the boss lady was relenting, I immediately swore. "Oh well." Lin Mieshua glanced at the stairs going downstairs, looking hesitant. After considering for a while, she agreed. However, when I happily went downstairs to carry her on my back, she lowered her head, her face became more and more rosy with shyness, and she told me again with her face half covered like a peeper, "But you really can't mess around, okay? I'll be embarrassed." "Yeah, I promise I won't mess around." I made assurances again and again, and swore in my heart that the boss lady was so nice, I must never disrespect her again, and at this moment, a fragrant breeze blew over. Then, a soft body lay on top of me. I was stunned. This feeling was indescribable. It was the first time I realized that a woman's body could be so soft. What excited me the most was when the boss lady lay on my back. I could clearly feel two indescribable softness pressing against me, and then because they were sticking too tightly, they spread to both sides. From this, it was not difficult to feel how tempting those two softnesses were. Am I heavy? Just when I was so excited that I couldn't control myself, I heard the shy voice of the boss lady. Because we were so close, I could even feel the boss lady's hot breath in my ear when she spoke. I had the tent erected almost instantly. Not heavy, not heavy, not heavy at all. I know that women care most about their weight, so I immediately lifted up the proprietress and carried her on my back. I became even more excited, and all the loss, grievance, and fear I had felt before disappeared. Because the boss lady wears a skirt. I reached my hands back and touched the proprietress's two smooth and soft thighs. This was the holy place that I had dreamed of touching during previous massages, but I didn't expect to be able to touch it so easily now. Lin Mieshua looked at me, who was full of energy, from her back. Her face turned red and her beautiful eyes were full of shame. She regretted letting me carry her on her back. When my hand touched her thigh, she instantly felt something strange there. Crisp and numb. At that moment, she felt her whole body was going limp. However, Lin Mieshua is a rather dignified and conservative beauty. In order to avoid suspicion, she supported herself on my back with her hands and tried her best to keep a little distance from me so that certain parts of her body would not be too obvious. I felt the same way. Although I felt a little disappointed, I was also content because I could put my hands on the boss lady's thighs. It was just that it was a little troublesome for me to carry her on my back if she didn't put her arms around my neck. The boss lady's thighs are so slippery. My palm slid slowly along the boss lady's thigh towards her buttocks. This immediately made Lin Mieshua sensitive. She came to her senses and asked me, "What are you doing with your hands?" "Don't blame me, it's too slippery." I heard this and explained with a wronged look on my face. The proprietress was now quite sensitive to the word slippery. Her face turned even redder when she heard this. She asked again with a hint of shame and anger. Chapter 23. Do you like me? No, it's really slippery. It's not good to be too strong. If you put your arms around my neck, it wouldn't be slippery. Seeing that the boss lady was angry, I hurriedly explained to her. The proprietress also knew to support my back with her hands. It was not convenient for me to carry her on my back, so after looking at me hesitating for a moment, she lay on my back again with a blushing face. Let my back feel soft again. I couldn't help but look back at the proprietress, and I felt that the blushing proprietress was so beautiful. The boss lady was very shy. She rolled her eyes at me and told me not to look at her and to concentrate on going downstairs. If I let her fall, she would not forgive me. Seeing that she was no longer angry, I smiled and said no, then carried her downstairs on my back. The process was very satisfying. If there is one thing that I am not satisfied with, it is that the circular corridor in Mr. Chen's house is too short. It takes less than a minute to walk down it, so I cannot carry the boss's wife on my back for a while longer. Can you cook? When we arrived at the dining table, Lin Mieshua looked at the two delicious dishes of pork ribs stewed with wintermelon and spicy shrimp on the table, and glanced at me in surprise. She didn't expect that I was a good cook at such a young age, which was another advantage. Yes, I have been able to cook since I was very young. I was so happy when I saw the boss lady praising me. Then I happily sat opposite the boss lady and said to her while staring at her blankly, "You can cook at a very young age." Lin Mieshua looked at me curiously and asked, "You've already started cooking at such a young age, don't your parents cook for you?" During the busy farming season, they have to harvest crops in the fields, so I have to prepare meals at home and wait for them to come back to eat. I started cooking when I was 9 years old. At that time, I couldn't reach the stove, so I moved a small stool and stood on it to cook. I said proudly. However, Lin Mieshua did not think that being able to cook at the age of 9 was anything special. She thought that 9 years old should be around the 3rd grade of elementary school. Thinking of this, when she looked at me again, her eyes were less wary and more compassionate. "You were only in the 3rd grade at that time, right?" "Yes." I did not notice the pity in the proprietress' eyes, because in my opinion, cooking at the age of 9 is very normal. Many of my peers knew how to cook when they were very young. Also go to the fields to do farm work. Whether it's weeding in the cornfield or planting rice seedlings, there's nothing I don't know. In comparison, I still think the boss lady is better looking, with fair skin, beautiful looks, dignified temperament, and long hair that flows down smoothly. She is as beautiful as a movie star in a TV series. After all, Lin Mieshua is a woman. When has she ever been stared at by a man like this? So she rolled her eyes at me in embarrassment and said, "Why are you staring at me? Is there something wrong with my face?" "Boss lady, you are much prettier than flowers." I looked at the beautiful lady boss and blurted out. When Lin Mieshua heard this, her heart, which had not been stirred for more than 30 years, suddenly seemed to have a stone thrown into it. It swayed for a while, then she looked at me and suddenly asked boldly, "So you always set up a tent in front of me?" "I don't want to either." I looked at the boss lady with grievance and said, "It's mainly because you are so beautiful, so I can't help it. And it's not under my control. I don't let it get hard, but it gets hard." The proprietress blushed and spat, "You are just lustful." "Really not, it's definitely because you, the boss lady, are too charming." I asked the boss lady confidently, "Why else would I not react to other women? If you, boss lady, looked like Feng Jie, I would definitely not have the slightest reaction. The boss lady rarely pays attention to internet celebrities, so she asked curiously, "Who is Sister Feng?" "She's just an ugly woman." In order to prove my character, I went to the boss lady and opened the browser on my phone, intending to find photos of Feng Jie to show her. But to my embarrassment, as soon as the browser was opened, Kang's signature hoarse voice came out. In the picture, Teacher Kang is hugging a male actor. Fuck. When I saw this, my heart almost jumped out of my throat with fright. I was teased by the vixen Ju Yeye in the office this morning. I was hiding in the toilet watching Teacher Kang's action romance movie and planned to masturbate. Later, Mr. Chen's sudden call interrupted me. I didn't even close the URL page and directly exited the browser. As a result, when I opened the browser again, it directly jumped to the web page that I had closed before, and this embarrassing scene happened. At this time, I didn't dare to look at the boss lady's face. Instead, I quickly returned to their homepage and searched for Feng Jie's photos again. However, when I was searching for Feng Jie's photos, I felt like I was trying to cover up the truth. Fortunately, the proprietress didn't say it on the spot. Lin Mieshua didn't say anything, but she saw the scenes in the mobile browser just now, as well as the embarrassing sound, which made her blush, but as a woman, she couldn't say anything. She just gave me a look of embarrassment and annoyance, wondering if I did it on purpose for daring to show her the porn movie in front of her. Of course, I couldn't bring up the incident, so I continued to show the boss lady the photo of Feng Jie. "See, is she ugly?" If it was her, I would never react easily. The lady boss didn't have the heart to watch any more. She looked at me with embarrassment and asked, "If I say someone is as pretty as me, would you react to her?" "Absolutely not." I immediately expressed my loyalty to the boss lady and said, "I only do this to you, the boss lady." As soon as I finished speaking, I was stunned. After all, I am just a driver for Mr. Chen. To some extent, the boss lady is also my boss. I actually told the boss lady that I would only react to her. What does that mean? So I lost my voice, and I didn't dare to look at the boss lady, for fear that she would be angry. The boss lady wanted to be angry, but when she saw my pitiful appearance, she couldn't bear to be angry. After thinking about it, she still felt that there were some things she had to explain to me. "Xiaolin." The boss lady called my name. I looked up at the proprietress. The boss lady looked at me and said, "I have a husband, did you know that?" "No." When I heard what the boss lady said, my heart sank, and the joy I had before disappeared completely in an instant. Yes, the boss lady has a husband, and I am just a driver in their family. What am I daydreaming about? A look of disappointment was written all over my face. Lin Mieshua was a person who was easily soft-hearted. Seeing that I looked unhappy, she looked at me and asked softly, "Are you unhappy?" "I'm not unhappy, just a little disappointed." I lowered my head, afraid that the boss's wife would see my expression. I felt extremely uncomfortable, as if I had been hit by reality. Seeing this, Lin Mieshua also sighed. She originally wanted to explain it to me, but seeing how disappointed I was, she suddenly couldn't bear to say it. Instead, she looked at me curiously and asked, "Do you like me?" I was stunned for a moment when I heard this, and couldn't help but look up at the proprietress. For a moment I couldn't figure out what the proprietress meant by asking me this question. "I'm asking you a question, do you like me?" When the proprietress saw me looking at her, she blushed and repeated the question. Chapter 24. All men are thieves. Like. I answered without hesitation. The lady boss looked at me deeply with her beautiful eyes, and I asked again, "Can you clearly tell what liking is? Could it be that this feeling of yours is not liking? Will you feel the same way when you see other beautiful women?" "No way, I just like you." Seeing that the proprietress didn't believe me, I quickly said it affirmatively. The lady boss was stunned for a moment when she saw my sure answer, and then she said faintly, "But I have a husband, and he treats me very well. You can't like me, understand?" After hearing this, I really wanted to leave with the boss lady. In fact, Mr. Chen doesn't like her that much. Mr. Chen's illegitimate child is about to be born. Mr. Chen even asked me to seduce you into bed with me so that he can divorce you on the pretext of your cheating. But he couldn't say it, so he just said to the boss lady in a low voice, "But I just like you. Hey, why don't you listen?" Seeing how stubborn I was, the boss lady sighed with a headache. In fact, she also had feelings for me and impulses towards me. This was the only man besides her husband. But the problem is that she is married now. Don't tell me you had sex with me. Even if you like it, you can't like it. Lin Mieshua looked at me and said in a gentle tone, Lin Dong, be good and listen to me. Find someone you like. You are not bad looking, sunny and handsome. You can find a girl who is 10 times better than me. But they are not you, and I just like you. I am addicted now. I cannot look at any other woman except the boss lady. My mind is full of her beautiful body and her beauty. I can't make sense with you, eat first. Lin Mieshua said this angrily, and then ignored me, pretending to be angry while eating. It was just that she felt a little sweet in her heart while eating. Which woman would not like a man who is a dozen years younger than her to love her unwaveringly? It's just that Lin Mieshua is a dignified and shy person, and she is too embarrassed to show it in front of me. After dinner. After I carried Lin Mieshua back to the room, she locked the door. Her meaning was very clear, which was to cut off all my thoughts. She was just saying that when she locked the door. Lin Mieshua lay on the bed, feeling a little empty inside. I can still clearly remember the massage I gave her in the morning. At that time, she was actually aroused and wanted it very much, but she was restraining herself and kept her legs tightly together, not wanting to be seen. But now that she was alone, she wanted it again. Lin Mieshua stood in front of the mirror. With a red face, she took off her clothes, and soon, a perfect figure appeared in the mirror. From top to bottom, there was not a trace of fat, and her curves were exquisite. Well proportioned. Every place is full of extreme temptation. I'm so much older than him, he really likes me. Lin Mieshua looked at her body in the mirror. It was no worse than some girls in their 20s. Her face was slightly red. She thought about the massage I gave her in the morning. It was a stimulation that her husband had never given her before. But soon, Lin Mieshua's face became a little gloomy again. She has a husband. Besides, she is more than 10 years older than me, so it is simply unrealistic for the two of us to be together. So Lin Mieshua put on her clothes again, then lay on the bed, picked up her phone and sent a WeChat message to her good friend Xiao Jinyu. Li Qingmai was an icy beauty and had no interest in men. But Xiao Jinyu is different. She is very good at hooking men. She is always interested in topics about men and has her own ways of doing things. So Lin Mieshua sent a message to Xiao Jinyu, my beautiful lady, are you there? I have something troubling me and I want to consult you. What is it? Xiao Jinyu kept his phone in his hand and quickly replied to the message. Lin Mieshua hesitated for a moment and asked, if someone likes me and I ask him not to like me, what should I do if he doesn't listen? Xiao Jinyu instantly perked up. He didn't want to send a message at all. He just popped up a video. After being rejected several times by Lin Mieshua with a blushing face, he switched to a voice call in frustration. Who likes you? As soon as the call was connected, Xiao Jinyu's gossipy voice came over. You don't know him. Xiao Jinyu knows me, but Lin Mieshua doesn't want to tell Xiao Jinyu that the person who likes her is actually me. Seeing this, Xiao Jinyu asked, do you like him? Lin Mieshua hesitated for a moment and said, no, he's much younger than me, and I'm already married. It's impossible, okay? Teach me how to make him dislike you. Xiao Jinyu sighed and said, I'm afraid there's no hope. Lin Mieshua was surprised and asked, why? I'm already a married woman. That's where the problem lies. Xiao Jinyu said with a wicked smile, does cow thief know? Lin Mieshua asked in confusion, what is cow thief? Can you explain it more clearly? Xiao Jinyu couldn't help laughing at this time, because Cao likes other people's wives, he is called cow thief. Lin Mieshua only realized at this time that Xiao Jinyu was teasing her, and said with some embarrassment, I'm telling you the truth. I'm telling you the truth, too. Xiao Jinyu said, I tell you, all men are thieves. Now, let alone middle-aged men, young boys also like young women. Have you heard that dumplings are the most delicious and your sister-in-law is the most fun? To them, a beautiful young woman like you is simply the best. If I were a man, I would also try my best to trick you into bed. Lin Mieshua blushed when she heard this, and then said, is there no other way? Yes. What is the solution? That's because you let him succeed. Once a man succeeds, he will find it boring and will naturally let you go. Of course, it's also possible that you are too attractive and men can't let go of you. After all, my beautiful Mieshua is really amazing. Seeing that Xiao Jinyu was getting more and more irresponsible, Lin Mieshua said angrily, you might as well not say anything. I'm hanging up. Seeing that Lin Mieshua was angry, Xiao Jinyu quickly said, no, 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 I have another way. What is the solution? Seeing that Xiao Jinyu had a solution, Lin Mieshua stopped immediately. The solution is to let me go and meet him. Xiao Jinyu spoke in a generous tone, and she could not hide her excitement. She said, well, I will fly over to you tomorrow. You introduce her to me, and I will make him fall in love with someone else. I guarantee that he will be so happy that he will never want to leave. Hang up. Lin Mieshua suddenly hung up the call angrily, and then Xiao Jinyu sent her several voice calls in succession, but she hung up all of them. After a while, Xiao Jinyu sent another WeChat message. Lin Mieshua took a look and her face instantly turned red. The message read, I fainted, sister, why are you really angry? Are you jealous? I didn't. When Lin Mieshua saw the message, she immediately denied it like a cat whose tail was stepped on. Then she ignored Xiao Jinyu and kept thinking about the scenes that happened in the past 2 days. A little distressed. Then, Xiao Jinyu's words that shocked her suddenly appeared in her mind. That is, if you let him succeed, men will find it boring when they succeed. Chapter 25 I'm running. Lin Mieshua, Lin Mieshua. When did you become so courageous? You have a husband. Aren't you mentally cheating? After Lin Mieshua realized her terrible thoughts just now, she began to condemn herself inwardly, but soon, she thought distressfully that if she didn't do this, Xiao Lin would refuse to let go. That's right. Is that okay? At this moment, Lin Mieshua suddenly thought of the scene she saw at the bathroom door last night. After thinking about it, she called her husband Chen Haifeng with a pounding heart. The call didn't go through at first. After 5 minutes, Chen Haifeng called back, and he said breathlessly, how are you now? Are you still in pain? I asked Xiaolin before, and Xiaolin said that your injury was not serious, so I didn't call you to ask. It's okay. I'm much better now. Lin Mieshua first replied, then asked curiously, why are you breathing so hard when you speak? Oh, it's like this. I'm running and I'm so tired. Is there anything else? Nothing. I'm hanging up. At crown number 1, Chen Haifeng was sweating profusely as he gently worked on Zhu Yeye's body. While doing so, he whispered to Zhu Yeye to bear with it and not make any sound. Zhu Yeye had a coquettish smile on her face, her red lips slightly parted, she was breathing softly, and she was about to make a sound. Chen Haifeng was frightened when he saw this, so he thought that if Lin Mieshua was fine, he would hang up the phone immediately. Lin Mieshua trusted her husband Chen Haifeng very much. Seeing him running, she didn't think much about it and asked, when will you be back? I'll cook for you in the evening. Didn't Xiaolin tell you that I have to go on a business trip to Shanghai to discuss a client and may not be back this week? Chen Haifeng said on the phone. Oh, he didn't tell me. Lin Mieshua said in surprise, but after hearing that her husband was going on a business trip for a week, she found herself feeling relieved, and then asked guiltily, what about Xiaolin? Aren't you taking him with you on your business trip? No, I have to leave in a hurry. Xiaolin will stay at home for this week. Just treat it as a holiday for him. Chen Haifeng said nonchalantly. He also wanted to use this opportunity to create a chance for his wife to cheat. Although the purpose of Lin Mieshua's call was to find out whether Chen Haifeng would be back in the short term, she still felt that it was not appropriate to ask me to stay at home for a week. Then he said hesitantly, it's not appropriate for Xiaolin to stay at home for a week. After all, it's just him and me at home. It's a bit inconvenient for me as a woman. What's the inconvenience? I still trust Xiaolin's character. Don't worry. I have something else to do now. I'll hang up first. Chen Haifeng hung up the phone and turned his attention back to Zhu Yeye under him. With a smile, he said viciously, well, you actually want to make a sound. Let me see how I deal with you. Zhu Yeye's face was full of seduction, and she pretended to be afraid. No, I don't dare to do it anymore. I really can't help it. Husband, please don't bully me, okay? The word, husband, perked up Chen Haifeng. Villa. Seeing that Chen Haifeng had not come back for a week, Lin Mieshua felt relieved. She sat on the bed with her mouth pouting, thought for a moment in a very cute way, then took out her cell phone again to make a call. She called me. Where are you now? In the car. I saw the boss lady go back to the room and lock the door, so I got back into the car. For me, the car is still my favorite thing, and it has my own private space. Anyway, I can't see the boss lady if I stay at home. Why are you in the car again? Lin Mieshua said in surprise at first, and then said, my ankle is a little painful now, would you mind coming up and massaging me again? Okay, I'll come up now. When I heard that, I felt like I was injected with chicken blood. Lin Mieshua was shocked to see my excited tone, and then quickly added, just a normal massage, you absolutely can't do that in the morning. Yeah, I definitely won't mess around anymore. I promised, and got off the car immediately. Upstairs. After hanging up the phone, Lin Mieshua touched her face and found it was very hot. She didn't know if what she did was right, but it seemed that she had no choice but to do so. Why? We can only hope that after he succeeds, he will find it boring and then find a girlfriend suitable for him. Lin Mieshua comforted herself in this way in her heart, then took a look at her cool nightgown, got up and found a relatively conservative pair of pajamas in the closet. Because of the exciting experience in the morning, she didn't dare to wear nightgown anymore. She even thought about it, bit her lip, and put on her underwear on purpose, but after putting on her underwear, Lin Mieshua couldn't help laughing out loud, thinking, let's see how you are still not honest now. And just at this moment, there was a knock on the door. It was me who knocked on the door. The moment the boss's wife called me, I immediately ran upstairs with all my might. I even ran so fast that I was gasping for breath. It took me a while to calm down. Then I saw the proprietress opening the door in her soft pajamas. I glanced at the boss lady and felt a mixture of disappointment and happiness. I was happy because even though she was wearing conservative pajamas, her figure was still very charming and her skin was as white as snow. Tall figure. The curves of her body hidden in her pajamas are very graceful, as beautiful as a beautiful landscape painting, showing her dignity and elegance. What's disappointing is that the boss lady is dressed too conservatively and her sexy and charming style can't be seen. The proprietress also noticed the momentary disappointment in my eyes, but the corners of her mouth slightly raised, like a smug fox, and she wanted to laugh, but she pretended nothing had happened. What was different from the morning was that this time the proprietress did not cover herself with a summer quilt, but lay down on the bed openly. Is this how I lay down to give you a massage? The proprietress turned her head and looked at me beside the bed and asked. I was a little disappointed at first when I saw the boss lady changing into conservative clothes, but when she lay down on the bed, I wasn't disappointed anymore. Nightgowns have the advantages of nightgowns, but pajamas also have the advantage of making you sleepy. The boss lady's pajamas are made of silk. Very close-fitting. The moment the proprietress lay down, her white silk pajamas softly stuck to her body, which made her already excellent figure even more prominent. The convex should be convex. The concave one should be concave. Indescribably alluring and fascinating. That's it. That's all. I looked at the incredibly beautiful proprietress lying on the bed, my eyes shining, and I couldn't help but say. The proprietress noticed my excitement and looked down at herself in confusion. What was going on? Wasn't she dressed very conservatively? Why did she still look so excited? Chapter 26. Are you so holy? Women are different from men. Although women are emotional, they are sometimes more realistic and care about visible things. But men are different, they stay young until they die. Although the proprietress is dressed very conservatively, just her lying there can give me a lot of room for imagination. Even through their clothes. I can still see the position of the boss lady's breasts at a glance. When I invited the boss lady to dinner before, I vaguely saw how perfect and charming her breasts were. Then I couldn't help but look at the boss lady's lower body. My mind was full of the touch of the boss lady when my hand slipped and touched her while I was giving her a massage in the morning. Although it was only for a moment, I could still feel how slippery her place was. It was not until this time that the proprietress realized why I was so excited even though she was dressed so conservatively. Although we didn't actually touch her, she still noticed my eyes wandering up and down her sensitive areas. The worst thing is that every time I look at her sensitive parts, she has an indescribable feeling, like shame and anger, or excitement, and she can't even explain it clearly. What she knew was that the unspeakable feeling she had felt that morning was coming back to her. And that place seemed to be gradually becoming slippery. The lady boss's face gradually turned red. She regretted letting me have a massage again, but the matter was done and it was too late for her to regret it. She had no choice but to talk to me with a red face. Xiao Lin, please don't look at places you shouldn't look at, okay? although it is rejected. But I think the boss lady is so gentle. Okay, I won't watch it. I really didn't look at it because I cared a lot about what the boss lady thought. She asked me not to look at it, but I resisted the urge to do so and focused on massaging the boss lady's ankles, then legs and waist. It was when I touched the proprietress's waist that I couldn't help but look at her again. The proprietress was shy and had her eyes closed. Her long eyelashes were trembling slightly. When she saw me stop, she opened her eyes and looked at me and asked, "What's wrong?" "Boss lady, your waist is so thin." I couldn't help but say, I knew that the boss lady had a good figure, but when I touched her with my own hands, I found that her figure was even better, with a slender waist, which felt like it could be held in one hand. The proprietress felt embarrassed and annoyed when she heard this. Then she rolled her eyes at me and said angrily, "You only know how to think about these things. I asked you to massage me, but you started to have wild thoughts while I was massaging. Who do you think I am, a slutty woman?" I was shocked to see that the boss lady said it so seriously, and hurriedly explained, "No, I have never thought about it like that. In my heart, you, the boss lady, are the most sacred." "How sacred?" Upon hearing this, the proprietress almost couldn't hold back her seriousness and wanted to laugh. "How could you praise a woman like that? You even brought up the word sacred. As sacred as Guanyin Bodhisattva." I said this sincerely, because in my heart, the boss lady is so sacred, and I went to give her a massage with the idea of making a pilgrimage. As for accidentally touching her private parts in the morning, I felt that I had desecrated her. "Bar, don't talk nonsense, can't you say that the Bodhisattva knows?" When the boss lady heard me compare her to Guanyin Bodhisattva, she was happy and flustered. After she said "Puh," she looked down at me and asked, "Also, you think I'm a Bodhisattva, so why is there a tent there? Your holiness means you have impure thoughts and a tent." I looked down and saw that there was indeed a tent. Then I looked at the boss lady with tears in my eyes. I didn't want to do it either. I don't know what's wrong with it. It's especially hard today and I can't control it. Hearing this, the lady boss sighed, sat up, stared at me, and asked, "Have you never had a girlfriend? Have you ever been on a blind date?" When I just got discharged from the army, I actually went on a blind date with a girl named Chen Yangjuo. However, because my family was poor at the time, I couldn't meet her requirements for a 2-story house and a dowry of 100,000 yuan, so we broke up. The boss lady looked at me and asked, "Have you had sex with her?" "Have we had sex?" No, I never held her hand. Later, she wanted to come to Binhai to see me, but I refused. I was stunned for a moment when I heard that, then I reacted and shook my head like a rattle. Then I told him about how I had a blind date with Chen Yangjuo, and how she despised me because my family was poor and I only met her once on the day of the blind date. The lady boss got a little angry when she heard this, and then she said to me, "This kind of vain woman, just break up with her. She is not worthy of you. You are so outstanding, you can definitely find a woman who is 10 times better than her." I looked at the boss lady without saying anything, and thought to myself, I want to find a woman like the boss lady to be my wife. No, it should be the boss lady. The lady boss saw me staring at her and blushed. She didn't dare to meet my eyes and her tone softened. "Why are you staring at me?" "Nice," I said subconsciously. The lady boss felt sweet when she heard this, but her mind told her that she couldn't do that because she was married. She sighed inwardly, looked down at my lower body, and said, "How can I stop it from pressing against me all the time?" My heart was moved when I heard the words. I looked at the proprietress again but didn't dare to say anything. I just couldn't help but look at the place on the proprietress that was particularly slippery that morning. The lady boss noticed it and her face turned red. She glared at me coquettishly and then took the initiative to say, "Weren't you masturbating in the bathroom last night? Keep masturbating and make it behave. Now." I heard this, feeling embarrassed and incredulous. The proprietress blushed so much that blood was about to drip out. She lowered her head and nodded, then suddenly said irritably, "Otherwise you're so annoying. You always have a tent in front of me. I can see it when I open my eyes, so you'd better just type it out." I actually wanted to, but I looked at the boss lady's face, which looked like a ripe peach, and then I stammered, boss lady, can you help me? What can I do for you?" The proprietress turned her head away, pretending not to understand. "Help me with your hands." I was afraid that the boss's wife would refuse, so I pleaded to her pitifully. "Bar. I don't want to help you." The lady boss blushed and said, "Puh," and then urged me, "Hurry up and do it. I won't watch you. After you come out, you have to give me a massage honestly." All right. Seeing that the boss lady disagreed, I had no choice but to do it myself. I can only say that although I was very excited when I looked at the boss lady in front of me, I also felt that she was extremely beautiful. But the proprietress was right in front of me, and if I did it alone, it always felt like something was missing. So I approached the boss lady uncomfortably, reaching out to grab her hand, and begging, "Boss lady, I beg you to help me, just once. Hey, what can I help you with?" The proprietress blushed and was very reluctant, not daring to look at me, but I still took her slender hand, and then she nervously moved towards where I was holding my head high. You rascal! The proprietress didn't even look at it. When she realized that her palm had touched something hard, she suddenly let out a cry, and then her hand seemed to be scalded. She retracted her hand with a red face. Chapter 25. I'm running 27. Lin Mieshua. When did you become so courageous? You have a husband. Aren't you mentally cheating? After Lin Mieshua realized her terrible thoughts just now, she began to condemn herself inwardly, but soon, she thought distressfully that if she didn't do this, Xiao Lin would refuse to let go. That's right. Is that okay? At this moment, Lin Mieshua suddenly thought of the scene she saw at the bathroom door last night. After thinking about it, she called her husband Chen Haifeng with a pounding heart. The call didn't go through at first. After 5 minutes, Chen Haifeng called back, and he said breathlessly, "How are you now? Are you still in pain?" I asked Xiaolin before, and Xiaolin said that your injury was not serious, so I didn't call you to ask. It's okay. I'm much better now. Lin Mieshua first replied, then asked curiously, "Why are you breathing so hard when you speak?" Oh, it's like this. I'm running and I'm so tired. Is there anything else? Nothing. I'm hanging up. At cran number 1, Chen Haifeng was sweating profusely as he gently worked on Zhu Yeye's body. While doing so, he whispered to Zhu Yeye to bear with it and not make any sound. Zhu Yeye had a coquettish smile on her face, her red lips slightly parted, she was breathing softly, and she was about to make a sound. Chen Haifeng was frightened when he saw this, so he thought that if Lin Mieshua was fine, he would hang up the phone immediately. Lin Mieshua trusted her husband Chen Haifeng very much. Seeing him running, she didn't think much about it and asked, "When will you be back?" "I'll cook for you in the evening. Didn't Xiaolin tell you that I have to go on a business trip to Shanghai to discuss a client and may not be back this week?" Chen Haifeng said on the phone. "Oh, he didn't tell me." Lin Mieshua said in surprise, but after hearing that her husband was going on a business trip for a week, she found herself feeling relieved, and then asked guiltily, "What about Xiaolin? Aren't you taking him with you on your business trip?" "No, I have to leave in a hurry. Xiaolin will stay at home for this week. Just treat it as a holiday for him," Chen Haifeng said nonchalantly. He also wanted to use this opportunity to create a chance for his wife to cheat. Although the purpose of Lin Mieshua's call was to find out whether Chen Haifeng would be back in the short term, she still felt that it was not appropriate to ask me to stay at home for a week. Then he said hesitantly, "It's not appropriate for Xiaolin to stay at home for a week. After all, it's just him and me at home. It's a bit inconvenient for me as a woman." "Is it inconvenient? I still trust Xiaolin's character. Don't worry. I have something else to do now. I'll hang up first." Having said that, Chen Haifeng hung up the phone, and then turned his attention back to Zhu Yeye, smiling and saying viciously, "Well, you actually want to make a sound, let me see how I deal with you." Zhu Yeye's face was full of seduction, and she pretended to be afraid. No, I don't dare to do it anymore. I really can't help it. Husband, please don't bully me, okay?" The word, husband, perked up Chen Haifeng. Viller. Seeing that Chen Haifeng had not come back for a week, Lin Mieshua felt relieved. She sat on the bed with her mouth pouting, thought for a moment in a very cute way, then took out her cell phone again to make a call. "She called me." "Where are you now?" "In the car. I saw the boss lady go back to the room and lock the door, so I got back into the car. For me, the car is still my favorite thing, and it has my own private space. Anyway, I can't see the boss lady if I stay at home." "Why are you in the car again?" Lin Mieshua said in surprise at first, and then said, "My ankle is a little painful now, would you mind coming up and massaging me again? Okay, I'll come up now. When I heard that, I felt like I was injected with chicken blood. Lin Mieshue was shocked to see my excited tone, and then quickly added, just a normal massage, you absolutely can't do that in the morning. Yeah, I definitely won't mess around anymore. I promised, and got off the car immediately. Upstairs. After hanging up the phone, Lin Mieshue touched her face and found it was very hot. She didn't know if what she did was right, but it seemed that she had no choice but to do so. Why? We can only hope that after he succeeds, he will find it boring and then find a girlfriend suitable for him. Lin Mieshue comforted herself in this way in her heart, then took a look at her cool nightgown, got up and found a relatively conservative pair of pajamas in the closet. Because of the exciting experience in the morning, she didn't dare to wear nightgown again. She even thought about it, bit her lip, and put on her underwear. But after putting on the underwear, Lin Mieshue couldn't help laughing out loud, thinking to herself, let's see how you are still not honest now. And just at this moment, there was a knock on the door. It was me who knocked on the door. The moment the boss's wife called me, I immediately ran upstairs with all my might. I even ran so fast that I was gasping for breath. It took me a while to calm down. Then I saw the proprietress opening the door in her soft pajamas. I glanced at the boss lady and felt a mixture of disappointment and happiness. I was happy because even though she was wearing conservative pajamas, her figure was still very charming and her skin was as white as snow. Tall figure. The curves of her body hidden in her pajamas are very graceful, as a beautiful landscape painting, showing her dignity and elegance. What is disappointing is that the boss lady is dressed too conservatively and her sexy and charming style can't be seen. The proprietress also noticed the momentary disappointment in my eyes, but the corners of her mouth slightly raised, like a smug fox, and she wanted to laugh, but she pretended nothing had happened. What was different from the morning was that this time the proprietress did not cover herself with a summer quilt, but lay down on the bed openly. Is this how I lay down to give you a massage? The proprietress turned her head and looked at me beside the bed and asked. I was a little disappointed at first when I saw the boss lady changing into conservative clothes, but when she lay down on the bed, I wasn't disappointed anymore. Nightgowns have the advantages of nightgowns, but pajamas also have the advantage of making you sleepy. The boss lady's pajamas are made of silk. Very close-fitting. The moment the proprietress lay down, her white silk pajamas softly stuck to her body, which made her already excellent figure even more prominent. The convex should be convex. The concave one should be concave. Indescribably alluring and fascinating. That's it. That's all. I looked at the incredibly beautiful proprietress lying on the bed, my eyes shining, and I couldn't help but say. The proprietress noticed my excitement and looked down at herself in confusion. What was going on? Wasn't she dressed very conservatively? Why did she still look so excited? Chapter 27 Directly Breaking Defense. Just once, please, Madam Boss. Although the boss lady called me a hooligan, I was not unhappy at all. Instead, I was extremely excited. I just didn't dare to show it too much. I pretended to be pitiful and continued to beg the boss lady. I want her to help me. Don't want. The boss lady still refused. I continued to beg persistently, really just once, otherwise I'm depressed now. Really, boss lady, if you help me this time, I will quietly give you a massage, okay? Seeing that I was begging desperately, the lady boss turned to look at me and said, after I help you, will you be completely obedient? Yes. He must have been completely honest. I was immediately overjoyed. The proprietress turned her head and glanced at me, then immediately looked away, her heart pounding, but finally under my pleading, she hesitated and finally did not refuse. And the moment the proprietress helped me, I then realized that the feeling of having the boss's wife help me and doing it alone is completely different. There is a world of difference. Madam Boss. I couldn't help but look at the proprietress. The boss lady was already very shy. Except for her husband, she had never done such an unspeakable thing for anyone. When she saw that I was about to speak, she glared at me. Shut up. When I saw that the boss lady was angry, I quickly shut my mouth in fear. Then after a long while, I dared to look up and secretly glance at the boss lady. The more I looked, the more I liked her. Her hair was smooth and her temperament was reserved and elegant. She has fair skin and beautiful face. There is no trace of time on her face. On the contrary, because of shyness, her cheeks and neck were flushed, as if she was drunk. She was extremely beautiful. Not to mention me, everyone in the company knew that the boss's wife was extremely beautiful and elegant. This temperament does not only come from the boss lady's appearance. It also comes from the accumulation of years. Over the years, the proprietress has resisted the decay of time, while at the same time developing the special charm of a mature and intellectual woman that young women cannot even learn. With the help of the charm of the proprietress, I didn't last long at all and was quickly satisfied. And just when it was over, an indescribable emotion suddenly swept over the proprietress's heart, making her feel bad all of a sudden. Full of self-blame, Lin Mieshue suddenly felt that she was not a good woman. She actually did such a shameless thing for a man other than her husband. She had no sense of shame as a woman at all. I made a mistake. Realizing this, Lin Mieshue began to feel particularly sad. What she looked down upon the most was such promiscuous women. How come she had become such a woman now? I didn't notice that the boss lady was in a bad mood and was still immersed in the satisfaction just now. I felt more and more that the boss lady was not only beautiful, but also a really nice person. Madam, I won't let my imagination run wild anymore. I looked at the boss lady with a happy face and said, I can give you a good massage now. Thank you, boss lady. You are so kind. But the landlady had no intention of asking me to give her a massage. Feel better. The proprietress suddenly turned around and looked at me with a cold expression. Although I saw the coldness on the boss lady's face, I still subconsciously said, I feel comfortable. If you feel comfortable, then go away. I don't want to see you. The lady boss looked at me with disgust. I was completely stunned, and couldn't understand it. The lady boss was so nice and charming just now, even her cheeks were flushed and very charming, and she also used her hands to help me do that kind of thing. Why does she suddenly seem like a different person? Became very unfamiliar. I couldn't understand it at all. The pride and satisfaction I had just felt disappeared completely in an instant, and were replaced by surprise, disappointment, and indescribable sadness. It was as if I was full of passion and then was suddenly doused with winter water by the landlady. Did I do something wrong? I asked the proprietress in fear and confusion. You are right, I am wrong. The proprietress stood up, came to the door, and motioned outside. Get out now, thank you. No, I'm not going out. How could I be willing to leave? I came to the boss lady unwillingly and said puzzledly, Boss lady, if I did something wrong, you can tell me and I can change it, but I was fine just now. Why are you suddenly angry? I can't understand. I won't mention what happened just now. When I mentioned what I just said, the lady boss's face suddenly changed. She interrupted me and turned to walk out. Okay, you're not leaving, right? I'll go, okay? Even if I am not witty. I also know clearly that this is the boss lady's home, and I am just a driver. How can it make sense for a driver to stay and let the owner leave? My heart sank to the bottom of the sea. The boss lady's ruthlessness made me feel extremely sad. No, you don't have to leave. I'll leave. This is your home, not mine. Because I was so sad, I got angry and quickly stopped the boss lady, then turned around and walked out. In fact, when I left, I really hoped that the boss lady could keep me. Then explain to me why her attitude changed so drastically. How come you suddenly become so heartless? But the proprietress stood at the door with a cold expression and let me leave. After I left, I heard a loud sound of a door closing behind me. The sound of the door closing undoubtedly touched my heart. I was so angry that I went downstairs without looking back. It was noon and the sun was scorching outside, burning the earth, but it could not bring me any warmth. I feel very cold in my heart. For a moment, I even wanted to leave and never come to the boss's house again. But soon, when I saw the Mercedes-Benz E300 parked at the door, I gave up the idea, opened the door and got in the car. I couldn't understand why the boss lady was suddenly angry and reconciled. Don't understand. Extremely sad and reluctant. These emotions filled my heart and made me feel breathless, so I thought about it, took out my phone, found the boss lady's WeChat, and wanted to send her a message to ask her how I had offended her. What did I do wrong? Even if the court sentences him to death, you still have to give him a crime, right? I typed this line excitedly and clicked send. But soon, I found that my message was not sent. A dialog box popped up. Shili Chunfeng has turned on friend verification. and you are not his or her friend yet. Please send a friend verification request. You can only chat after the other party passes it. My defense was broken instantly.